before I introduce Markese method, just as a disclaimer, my voice is not of the best, so bear with me. It's gonna be like that until the rest of the pod, but I think it's still palatable enough for it to be run it for me to be able to run it. Anyway,
Mm.
Markese method. Please introduce yourself.
Howdy, everyone. Appreciate French OG having me on. I'm Marchese Methods at Marchese Methods on X, and I'll use the usual socials. I am the life coach and based therapist online, and I operate my website, marchesemethods.com, wherein you can get coaching from me on everything ranging from muscle, money, mentality, and marriage. And marriage and dating is of particular interest because me and French OG interact a lot about the whole topic of marriage, dating, uh, PUA, masculinity, all that sort of associated stuff.
All right, all right, all right, all right. So yeah, Markese, like, can you tell a little bit more to the audience, really, like, what why the base therapist, right? Why makes you different from other people?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a rumor that's rightfully thought of and founded that therapy entails talking to some sorority girl from college about your feelings or something like that, and largely leaving your problems unsolved. But all of the original intellectuals about therapy or about psychology were very much analytical and problem solving oriented. And I want to revitalize that, bring that back, use my faculties to do that to help everybody. I got the idea a lot from just sort of pseudo doing it for many friends across the years who have told me everything from thanks to you, I can go back into my school year with a whole new set of confidence. One of my more recent friends from the military, he always says to me that he's really grateful that he met me, wherein he learned that he's right to think how he thinks, as in he thought he was the only one a lot of the times who thought some of these like broad, edgy
Mm.
opinions or something like that. And he thought that necessarily that implies they're irrational or something. So, upon observation of me thinking the same way with the confidence and fervence, he realized or he sort of refound a new, revitalized sense of confidence. So, that's what base therapy entails, a lot of the analysis to the inner workings of the mind that are either manifesting as problems or good things for you, and treating them appropriately. I was a U.S. Army soldier, as I just said. I was a Shadow RQ-7 Bravo drone pilot. It is a unmanned aircraft. I did that for 2, 3 years, and I was stationed at Fort Drum. I got out because I didn't like it. I found the military to be a little bit too cultish and a little bit too subordinate and in a twist of fate. And the COVID vaccine actually provided me my golden ticket out. I've written the story. And long story short, I refused the vaccine religiously, but then had to outright refuse it to get kicked out to my liking. And so I very much went ahead and did that. And then I had a brief career in engineering math, and I had a degree in it. I fell in love with math when I was in college. Did that for a year or so, and then I wound up starting Marchese Methods.
All right. Well, two things I'll say about psychology, right? Um, First one is not that serious, which is if you deal with a girl that studies psychology, she's a freak.
Yeah,
A good a freak in the sheet. Yeah, if this
yeah,
study psychology is because they're fucking mad. But then,
yeah.
can you confirm, Mark, is he?
Yeah, well, that's sort of the struggle. And as a matter of fact, as I take the graduate program to be a clinical mental health counselor for licensure and everything too, that's the disclaimer there. The firstly, the degree, you're absolutely right. The undergraduate degree is silly. It's subject to all these rote memorization, vocabulary words, and many people go into it thinking they're going to learn how to read somebody's mind or something. And many, like especially these types of women with their magic psychology intuition powers, think they're exacerbated by going into college undergrad. And sure enough, they don't. And then they just prance around calling everybody incels or something. And then even the graduate degree, I'm doing the program now, and the institutions captured by things like empiricism and tangibilities makes them afraid to really make this more of a philosophical analysis that everyone wants, and makes them afraid to read the inner workings of the mind. So even then, the program by which most people are trained to be therapists is totally corrupted. It's really only reliable when it's somebody who is like me or some of the other therapists that I've met that are like bro, whatever you want to call it, have this bro energy, have this broader problem solving energy, because the institutions most certainly aren't a good heuristic. To your point, the only heuristic for which they're good for is if a woman study it, she's probably like nuts and a freak.
I'll tell you something. This concept that I've always basically been very reliable for me. Whenever a woman start to overcrowd a field, it start to goes to shit. What happened with the judge in France, or like the journalist,
Yeah,
loves those. It's like a fucking tumor, right? It's like it gets in there, it grows, and then it goes to shit. Same thing with a company. Like before I go on to the second point, you know what? I've got this theory upon the company's growth phase, right? You generally have
right.
you start a company, you have very few people in there. You got maybe five, four, three, two guys,
Yeah,
and then they build that shit up and they grow it. Then they need to hire a fucking PA, right? She's like,
yeah,
then receptionist. Then it's gonna be, well, we need some marketing. Then, oh, we need some HR, because then there's the hand part, it starts get out of hands. And before you know it, then you have got 60, 70% of women in there. And by then the company stopped growing. But as, as a company, but, it's like, but going back onto the second point, which is, and that's going to tie partly to what you said on the second, in your second reply, but also on your first reply. Guys are getting owned by women because they don't own their psychology, and women own them. That's the first thing. And
yeah,
second, you need to be able, as a guy, to own psychology better than women own themselves. And for that, you need to be able to know which is the right curriculum, which is the right stuff to read, because there's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of nonsense. I mean, look, just I don't know what you think about the attachment theory, cuckold crew, but when I just look at the face of the guy, I'm just like thinking about, is that supposed to be the guy that I'm supposed to be hearing about? I'm not. I mean, I don't like to insult on the physical look of people, but physiognomy exists for a reason, right? And I look at this,
yeah,
I'm like, like, to me, it's like, do I believe that the nervous system respond to different type of stimulus? Yes, I do, right? But this whole typology of fucking attachment style, to me, is complete nonsense. But I've read a lot of psychology because I needed to address like problems that I had, right? And
yeah,
this actually made me not only basically helped me clear my mind, and a lot of guys need to have their minds cleared up, but it helped me not getting manipulated by women, but also, should I want, I could manipulate women because of it.
yeah,
And that's something
yeah.
I want.
Absolutely.
So mm.
Yeah, you brought up quite a few things. I'll say at the start, it's funny. You might have seen there is this neighborhood of our neighborhood of the internet that a few weeks ago like just read about attachment theory for the first time in their life, and it's like the oh, this is it. This is like the mind blown thing, and it's like so insultingly like juvenile, the ideas of attachment theory, to even call it theory. Like all it says is, oh, like very watered down simplistic versions of, oh, if your mother was avoidant, you will emulate that by relating to women who are avoidant or something like that. And I would say, while you could say these attachment styles exist in a way, but to sort of make them like the root cause epistemic pathology is like so uh like low IQ essentially. So I'm with you on that with the attachment theory. And you brought up it was funny. I saw a few weeks ago, I was just browsing the internet, I guess, and one of these original guys, I forget his name. I don't want to say it was BF Skinner, but one of them, there was just like this info thing that was like, yeah, his or the guy who invented rational emotive behavioral therapy, It
Mhm,
said something like he reportedly would just like go into Central Park or something like that and approach like 100 women or something like that. So I was like, yeah,
mhm,
maybe that, maybe there is something to it. These guys were like some of the OGs with that. And then I'll say, uh, the women in fields or in businesses degrading or eroding the work. I think that is certainly a phenomenon and a valuable point. And I think you and I understand that a lot of dorks sort of attach to that and attach to that as like an own of the women or something. Whereas I think more so there's a tracing of causality there, and most people at best will try to characterize that as, well, women are like emotional or something like that. But why are they emotional? Where does that emotionality come from? And why are they so subject to it? Because we know that there's the emotional circuitry, they had to evolve to survive, yada, yada, but they've been really captured by it the past 60 years. And I think it mostly relates to this sort of, you could call it this broader political, cultural changeover to hedonism, pleasure pursuit, or comfort
mhm.
pursuit, and the avoidance of displeasure and discomfort. And so, with that, women came together with that in the collective woman unconscious in like the sort of psychological group chat and came together and agreed to bolster that, to strengthen that by agreeing not to shame each other and agreeing to lift each other up in this way is such that they're all excused from the proverbial accountability. And so what that makes for it when they're in these work fields and all of that, they're so cemented and deeply grounded in the idea that to both from their neurology and psychology and the broader cultural themes of valuing that neurology and psychology of emotions, feelings, and all of that, such that it procures them largely just sort of sitting around. I wouldn't even say not doing anything per se, but living in whatever they feel in that moment, which is obviously always counterproductive to work.
Well, and also a lot of time you need innovation. A lot of time you need to take higher level of risk. A lot of time you need to think outside the box. And when you think about that, it's like generally women think inside the box. Well, maybe because they got one, I don't know. Whereas the guys basically don't have one, so you have to think outside the box in order to get in the box. But no
Yeah.
pun intended. But like and it requires as well, and so the more women comes in, the more the political correctness happens, etc., etc. You can see that in the political spectrum, in the US, I can see that in France, I can see that in the UK, and it all goes down to shit. So those are general trends. It's not to say about a specific woman whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
But again, you know, it's and even in the field of psychology, just take outside of just the industry of psychology, just look at the mainstream narrative, it's like
Mm.
the terms avoidance, every time a woman I hear avoidance, no, he's an avoidant. No, he's just avoiding you, right? It's like, most of
Yes.
the time,
Yes.
like he's emotionally unavailable. Yeah. Maybe because he doesn't want you that much. It's not always about the you, right? But like this detachment, this control narrative that it's never about you is basically shelving their ego. It's like literally psychology is there to completely, obviously, avoid accountability, but
Hmm.
really shield the ego rather than actually help you own your ego to the point that it's not counterproductive to you. And a lot of those terms which had a meaning back in the day don't have any meaning, right? It's like,
Hmm.
what else outside of emotionally unavailable, avoidant, narcissistic? I mean, not everybody's a fucking narcissist now. Like it's like, hello, NPD is about 1% of the population, and even then, I'm not even sure if that's high.
Yes.
But so yeah, please tell me more about this, as a psychologist, what you've seen behind the scene.
No, yeah, for sure. You might have seen that funny meme where it says something like 99% of women's ex-boyfriends are narcissists, but 1% of the population is narcissistic, right? So, uh, and it's remarkable to see women genuinely think that they're the authority by virtue of being women, they're the authority on that. And I've joked about how, they use their magic psychology intuition powers to determine you're a narcissist, but they can't use those powers to determine whether a guy's gonna like beat them up and like you know what them, assault them, I'll say, as the less incendiary word. So it's like, really the woman's intuition thing, that sort of mythology proliferates in a sense from there is obviously an emotional, neurological, evolved circuitry they have that makes them a little bit more sensitive or keen to interpersonal observation, emotions, and this space in which we transact psychologically and emotionally. But I've always said that the average woman might be better than the average man at doing that, but that's operating within the bell curve of average people. As soon as that average woman comes across a guy, like you said, who's well informed, articulate, understands this stuff, the real stuff at its deepest level, who has psychology way deep under their belt, they get like totally mind fucked by those guys, actually. And that's just evident in what they're always complaining about. They're always complaining about how they can't seem to figure out how to get those guys under their wing or something. And as far as, the narcissism, you're absolutely right to point out it's, oh well, you're avoidant. It's like, well, no, he's just avoiding you. And ironically, to say you're in general avoidant actually is the narcissism. To say that that's a
Exactly.
broad categorization of you, as opposed to any possible inference to just not even them, but the how you two would relate. They expect you to defer to them at all times. It's like textbook narcissism. And
But I'm sorry, but if you look at
no, go ahead.
woman and female nature, it is highly and deeply narcissistic in everything.
Yes.
And in a way, the fact that it's become mainstream is a bit of a problem for women because guys realize that, and there's not as much as the mystique anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's all this allusion to their instincts and their instincts and all of that. Their instincts very much deeply are self preservational, like more than anything else. I think in general, the natural existence of the human mind optimized for to avoid these bad binaries. So, for example, it's always about avoiding death or avoiding danger or something like that.
Yeah,
Danger
survival.
has much more, yeah, danger has much more of like a weighted binary risk or something like that. What I mean is, let's say women cooperate within the group much more and don't want to risk offending people and operate in consensus because they don't want to risk ostracize, alienation. And
Hmm.
because if they're alienated, they're left to survive on their own, and then they die or something like that, right? So the mind feels that as much more of an existential crisis than hedging by saying, okay, well, let me just go with consensus so that I could stay alive right here, right now, because before anything else, I have to be breathing. And then I'll figure out how I want to stand in the group, how I want to develop my inner workings and my confidence and that sort of thing. But it's a loop, it's a catch 22 because you're forever avoiding or escaping, running away from that fear of that binary of alienation dying because there's no satisfaction to that. That's just a perpetual state. And so they really have trouble breaking out of that fear operation, which is all instructive of the mythology that they're like the caring or empathetic sex or something like that. Turns out to be not true. It turns out to be they're much more self preservational that expands into everything we know today as narcissism or as selfishness or something like that. But even pursuant to their self-preservation, they have managed to obscure that into all sorts of narratives about how the magic psychology powers, how they're the emotional ones, how they're empathetic and everything.
The best way. I mean, I'm gonna joke about this, but the best way for a guy to actually own a woman psychology with psychology without having to do the psychology is not to care about, is to not care about the woman.
Yeah,
Because you'll do all the right stuff. But if you actually like a woman and care, and want to get a certain outcome, and you don't want to fuck things up, because generally you want to fuck things up because you're too ego driven as a guy. Most guys are so. Thing is, the best way to exploit a man is through their ego, right? And
yeah.
it's like, and women can sense that shit. And it's like if you as a guy don't get your ego in checked, you're gonna get played, right? And if you don't, and if you care about that woman, that's how you're gonna get played. So it's really key for you to really appreciate where you're leaking value, where you're leaking, because when she feels that she can feed you, then she can starve you. And that's very
Yeah.
important for guys to understand.
Yeah, women's operative the deal between men and women, whether we like it or not, and I do believe there is a transcendental element. It's just that very few people can come across it. But the deal at its core is the status and resources, whatever it is for the sexuality, and women can feel latently that realistically the only place they have in the hunter gatherer, very base level tribe is the provision of that, because anything else a man can do better. We feel this as hunter gatherers. Men are equipped to be the better hunter gatherer. Maybe women can gather, I suppose, but really they're not equipped to do that. So they're what they bring to the tribe, to the group, is their sexuality. And I think that's one of the nucleuses of their perpetual discontent and envy of men, is that they can feel latently they don't have that same proclivity and everything. And that does create a problem for them, understandably, actually, because there is a human condition where we all actually do want to have sovereignty and we all do want to have transcendence, meaning being above our instincts and everything. I think men are more keen on that and conscious of that, because what is that sovereignty? What is that transcendence? It's leadership, it's dominance over the self, dominion over the self. Women want that too, but it's not as heavily weighted to their self identification. But then factor in their how much more heavily weighted their feelings are, and it makes them side with their feelings more than with that sovereignty. So they come into this loop of they're envious of men, but they'll never really do any actual sovereign things that men do, because that's uncomfortable. It feels like effort, it feels like work. So they'll cope and they'll rationalize. And one of the ways they tried to do this was the career boss bitching. Everyone
I was
sort
gonna
of vaguely
ask.
senses, yeah,
I was gonna
everyone
ask.
sort of vaguely senses that the career boss bitching is an effort or an attempt at transcendence. It's an attempt to do something that isn't immediately gratifying, pleasant, or something like that. But then, of course, what does that do? That's not really how transcendence feels for women. Other women try doing it through child rearing and everything, which is much closer. And then, of course, they do have to have their own sort of self challenges to overcome, to include things like the gym for them too. And I'll finish up by saying I think that is the real nucleus. There's the downs there. There's all of the issues that are specific to men and women relating to each other, but the ultimate nucleus for both sexes is this confidence problem, wherein we have, using the psychology terms, we have the super ego, the ideal self, who we want to be. Then
Mhm.
we have our mediator, sort of rational faculties in between the ego, and then we have the id, which is the part of us that is the devil on our shoulders, telling us to eat this, do that. And our survival instincts tell us to side with the id, so they're very powerful. Men tend to manage to escape it. Women sort of get envious that men are a little bit more capable of escaping it, so then they spurg out. And then with that spurging, you have this perpetual competition with men in things like career,
Ugh.
instead of them actually breaking free from that mental prison as well.
No, well, that's actually a great segue for upon the division of masculinity
Mm,
and femininity between men and women. How we see more and more women turning masculine through that spurging out and girl bossing shit, right? As you were mentioning, and the retreat of men from not even wanting to fight that competition because it's a joke, and that
yeah.
reinforces the loops where women, due to the lack of competition, feels even more empowered in becoming the thing that they feel that they should become, and the guys, either because it can't be asked, or they're just saying like, "What's the point of dealing with women if I'm fucking a bloke in skirt?"
Yeah.
basically completely destroying the incentive structure.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that split that goes further between men and women because women in that sense of powerlessness, they try with the career thing and then they also try to ameliorate it. The term is penis envy, but of course they're not
Mhm.
actually envious of the genitalia itself, but rather what the genitalia implies and procures, which is this sensation of power. They're firstly starting off with this perpetual fear and anxiety that really, their mind sort of feels, even if they're not reasoning it, even if they know it's irrational, that at any given moment, all the men of the world could team up and just like throw them in like a farm and like farm them if they wanted. And so they're particularly scared of that like 24/7. And this is another example of like narcissism or solipsism where they're really scared of that, like in part because they realize that's what they would do if they could. I think you might have seen a tweet somewhere sometimes where it was like if women were the stronger sex, they'd slam you into a table once a month minimum or something like that. That's something instructive there, but they feel this powerlessness, and what do they do? In response, there's a couple ways they could go on their own trajectory and try to regain a sense of power through transcendence, through career, which thwarts them because it doesn't make them feel right. It doesn't align with femininity, and it doesn't feel powerful because career stuff isn't really fully that challenging anymore in the same way it used to be. And so they'll do try that way. The other way they try is they can feel the power sexuality has on men, and this isn't really a power. Well, it's a power in two ways, both intrinsically in that men are so very much beholden to their desire for sexuality, and then there's also the supply and demand power wielding that they could have on it because as much as people it's kind of a cringe proverb to say, "Oh, women control sex." I think the better way to say it is just that, like, if they offer it, a man somewhere will say yes, and so that creates conditions for which they are the supplier. They are the supply. The United we're men are the United States and women are China supplying all of the stuff or whatever, right? So they can feel that power leverageable and they
Yeah.
use it to leverage it on men, really not even to gain something from men, but to transact in power. So they try to extract power from men by wielding power over them. And then they could say, yeah, they could sort of ameliorate their low self esteem and say, okay, well, I might not be able to get up in time or go to the gym, or I might be totally beholden to my emotions, but that I can control this beast, this strong beast implies that I have a power and therefore, if I have that power, I don't need to feel guilty about my choices because it's not that I make these choices, or it's not that I make these choices of weakness. It's that I make these choices because they're my choices because I have the power to not make these choices. So, um, that's sort
But
of like
you
one of the nucleuses, and then men respond with trying to assert power as well.
Yeah. It's so funny because I've had to go on TikTok to just make some videos, just
Mhm.
widen the brand and all that. And I'm going on there, and I'm just like, women are so hell bent on control narratives, where because at the end of the day, they get ran through to the point where they don't control any dicks because every dick goes inside them, so they need to control the narrative. The same way as a girl that will go back to an ex. Uh, that dumped her because she wanted to get over him, technically and metaphorically, uh, in order to feel that she had control of the whole situation. That desire for control is because they feel underneath. It's kind of like what you were talking
Yes.
earlier about the penis envy, right? That desire to emulate the man or the dick in metaphor,
Yep.
but at the same time is because those women don't have that dick and suffer from getting dicked that they have
Yeah.
to sublimate. I mean,
Yes.
the dynamic, and that's why everything is. I'll use an example, right? Like something has done. Like, say for example, you have a bitch that
Mhm.
acts like a cunt, and the guy basically just like, you know what, I'm just gonna block the bitch, right? And it's like you see on TikTok, you see like all those girls be like, "Oh, you broke his ego, well done," type of shit. Like, and basically, and
Yeah.
then they'll say, "Oh, that guy really care about you." Maybe he did. Or maybe he just didn't want to deal with your fucking sorry ass. Or like another narrative is, uh, it's like, "Oh, you basically giving me the cold, like you're going no contact. Well, guess what? I'm going to another guy," type of stuff. Kind of like all that self-empowerment thing, not realizing that it's like a downward spiral to becoming completely soulless. Huh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Despite all of this mythology, I mean, they do control sex. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Can you hear me?
No, yeah, I can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you said, okay. What you said reminds me or made me think about how the sexuality works until they want to use it with a man that they actually are attracted to. And then the catch 22 is, well, if they can leverage it as power on that man, well then that categorically makes him amongst the unattractive. And so
Yes.
they sort of pick up on how, well, I could still earn his affection by using sexuality. But then, of course, that's a catch 22 as well, because if he responds just to sexuality, well, then that's not really the affection they're asking for. But then, because he's like that, they suddenly become really frustrated at how beholden they are to their attraction to him. They're so used to controlling sexuality amongst these like dorks, but then when they come across the Chad, the alpha or whatever, he totally like mind fucks her and like he controls the sex thereafter. And she can't help herself but say yes to him every single time. And then that drives them further into like this borderline hysteria because it's like, what do they have left to use as that power and that leverage?
By the way, guys, if you want to make a girl go crazy, but not, deny her sex, she won't like it. But make sure that you do that with your girlfriend, because some girls will be fucking crazy enough to basically say that you raped them, even though you basically blue balled them. Just disclaimer here. But yeah, no, I mean, like, I know I have a friend. I mean, his ex-girlfriend. Like, whenever she was basically acting up and everything, she was like, you would literally like, she'd feel like he would fuck her, and then he would like, and then he stop fucking her midway. It would drive her insane, and then he would just basically just get his stuff and just get on to his day, get up, on his day. But like, if you have that ability of you as a guy that woman don't control your dick, that will make her go crazy. That'll make her go crazy.
I
But
went
you
in
know,
my college days, I went to the bar a handful of times, and you know how like the teasing goes back and forth. So whenever they
mm,
would do something if it wasn't annoying, you could tell that they were worried that it was annoying. I would say something like, "You're not getting any tonight," and the whole
mm.
bar would erupt. It'd be like, ah, "What? You can't say that. You can't do that." And I'll be like, "Well, I just did." Or so that'll always be funny. Or another one was always something like, yeah, and this was just like basic shit test stuff, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, why are you single? There were a handful of times where I said, I would love to date somebody, but women just keep using me for sex, and they'd be like, "Ah, you can't say that, So
Yeah.
it's always funny to flip the frame like that.
Oh, well, look, that's the thing. It's once you have a good grasp on psychology, you can literally not only flip the frame as you said, but mindfuck woman. And then from the moment that you can mindfuck woman, then you realize how fucking easily mindfuckable you were as a guy. And then
Yeah,
makes you just kind of like have like a look at you, right? Like, because a lot of time guys believe, like, oh, it's like some fucking bitch stuff psychology. It's like, no. Obviously, most psychologists out there, you don't want to basically be under their wing, because they're gonna turn you into a cuck. Because
yeah,
it has been completely feminized. Like the curriculum has been fucking feminized so much.
yeah,
And on top of that, and like if you look at just how the spectrum of condition has been expanded for commercial purposes, it's becoming mercantilist over actually empiricist. And that's, I think,
yeah,
also another bad how do you call it, trend.
yeah, yeah. That reminds me, And a lot of men neglect, like, in actual theory, you could do all of this stuff yourself. I tell all my clients, like, in theory, you could actually do all of this by yourself. I'm just sort of like an aid on your way there. And one of the things I thought about or I saw the other day was, amidst this power dynamic thing, men try to assert power back, and they're really doing so because they too have an absence of power. I think the average man, the
Mhm.
average woman struggle with this, but it weighs more heavily on the male psyche. And the average woman, since they cluster more around their feelings, the average woman tends to be subordinate to this sort of thing, whereas men can break free. But one of the ways men try to break free is to assert power back upon women in the absence of power, internally grounded in
Yeah.
keeping their promise to themselves, in challenging themselves, and this sort of thing. And this relates to what we were just talking about, the jokes back and forth and the mind fucking. I saw this emergent new own, this new own all the guys online are talking about is, well, dinner dates are only for XY, they're not a first date or something like that. And, I'm sure, your space might agree with that sentiment. And I don't really see anything wrong with the sentiment, but you could tell that it's meant to like try to own them in some fashion. And I said to them, realistically, you guys have to take a step back and examine what exactly it is you think you're losing by taking a girl out on a dinner date. It might be a little humiliating. The whole thing is sort of humiliating intrinsically. You might sort of she might sort of get a free meal out of you or something like that. But that you guys are so skittish about risk and so skittish about that something will be taken from you, your balls, castration anxiety, instructs that you don't have them in the first place. You're only afraid of that, firstly, if you don't have them, by keep grounding yourself, keeping your promises to yourself. And secondly, by trying to get them by giving them to women. So I think a lot of men, when they do something like a dinner date or even just intrinsically in hitting on women, it feels in the psyche like you're already handing them. Because what does that mean? As soon as you say hi to a girl, she knows that it means you think she's hot and you want to fuck her, right? So,
Yeah.
what that feels like to the male psyche is giving your genitalia over in a way. And what is your genitalia? It's also the source of your essence, right? Because testosterone's manufactured there. So it's the source of everything for you, your sense of self, confidence, energy, life force. You are placed in the tribe, your ability to hunt and everything. And so on the dinner date, and I'll relate it. I
Mhm.
promise I'll relate it. I know I go on for a while.
No, 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 don't worry,
Um,
don't worry.
the on the din with the dinner date stuff, it even sort of feels like you're giving her your hunting yield. But I say to these guys, I say, you know what? You got to think about it as if you're thinking about the dinner date as a giving and a pursuing to her, you lose. And this is sort of like the real old school stuff I'm sure you know about that a lot of people
Mhm.
seem to not know about, that I know about despite it being before my time, but this old school stuff of self amusement. So, I was saying the other day, I was like, realistically, what is a first date? A first date is you want to go somewhere to eat and you decide to bring a woman with you because it's entertaining and it's funny. Because realistically, it's funny and hilarious to be on a dinner date with a woman and like, tease her or something like that, or get a rise out of her by making these sorts of, sex jokes or whatever. And you'll find yourself that even if you don't get laid instantly, even if she doesn't fucking jerk you off under the table, if you set out to get that out of it, the amusement, the dinner that you wanted to eat, and the jokes, you'll find yourself walking away feeling like you won. You win because you didn't give her anything in the first place. It was all for yourself in a way. So
Actually, it's quite funny because I have a few stories on this. I know people love my stories, so I'm just gonna indulge. So, you see, on dinner dates, it's kind of like I don't particularly indulge in them, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I
yeah.
do, and it really depends, right? Like but actually, three different example, right? Recently, yeah. I mean, I think when was it? It was Saturday. Yeah, it was Saturday evening, right? I was tired. I went to sleep, and then I received a message at 1 a.m. and it was this girl saying, "You want to fuck?" And I was like, "Well, I was asleep." I woke up 1 hour later because old age makes me pee in the middle of the night. But anyway, and I looked back at the and before she was like saying, "Are you gonna take me out?" type of stuff. That girl, we already had sex with. Like, she was fucking crazy. She was a fucking mental
Mm.
head case, right? Like she had sex. I thought like it's kind of like it was kind of understood like we'd be like friends with benefit, and then she blocked me the day we were supposed to meet again. I was like, all right.
Mhm.
Out of curiosity, I was like, all right, I'm gonna DM her on iMessage and see if she blocked me there. No, she didn't. And then she say, "Oh, you're just so rude." Blah 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 blah. Okay, fine, whatever. And I was like, and it's like, and you didn't make any effort. And I said, "Oh, what do you expect? I expect dinner." I'm just like, well, I take a girl to dinner. I take a girl to dinner, and if that's what I want to do, right? Well, I didn't want
Right.
to do because she asked for it, right? That's the first one.
Right.
Then the second one, like supposed to meet her first time, and she was like, I told her this place, and she told me, no, I can't do this place. Can we do this place? I was like, all right, whatever. Like usually again, right? You're when a girl counter offers, generally is a red flag, right?
Mhm.
But I was like, whatever. I'm like, who cares? Uh, and then she suggests me another place. I was like, yeah, right. If you counter offer, suggest another place, and it was like, didn't make any difference to me. And
Mhm.
then on the days, oh, can we have a call? All right, fine. And then she says, oh, can we do another place? I'm like, hey, look, I'm tired of all your nonsense. We agreed that place. Like that's it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's too close to you. Let's do something halfway. And it's like, what? Forget about it. Right? Whatever. She was
Right.
not happy, and then she started sending me some fucking videos about on it from Instagram of uh of how to date properly. I'm just like, do I look like a cuck? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Anyway, and we started chatting. Then she ended up finding a guy to take her to a really nice restaurant in the Savoy Hotel, 5 star and
Mhm.
everything. And I was like, well, what's the catch then? Oh, she didn't really understand the thing. I was like, well, apparently you had kids. I was like, yeah, so you'll overcompensate with a dinner, right?
Mhm.
And then the third one was so actually, it's kind of like it's a double. It's a double banger. I mean, pun intended. Um, like sometimes you'll see a girl that you're like, So the second girl, I didn't want to give her dinner because it's kind of like she was just kind of like bargaining the place and the location. It didn't make it flowy. It's not flowy. I don't like it. Right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes I'll go on a date with a girl. We vibe well the first time. We even fuck. Like whatever. Then I'll take her on to the restaurant the second day. Because I enjoy the interaction. I want to, and then because of
Right.
the restaurant, she feels the pressure of always something a bit more, and then they start basically, you
Right.
know, create boundaries and whatnot. And you're like, so even the restaurant can create false sense of expectation upon a girl that you as a guy, um, alleviate. So it's like you're putting on pressure not only upon you but upon her that you need to alleviate. So it's almost like you're creating problems before they even arise. Right? So that's something. And the two last example is I met this girl again, match on the app, and she, like we're supposed to have drinks. No, no, I don't lead with dinner, right? But she's supposed to have drinks,
Mhm.
and then she was coming from a rich area in London, right? I was like, hmm. And I was like, okay, um, drinks should be fine. I invite her to Chelsea. And then she flaked 2 hours before. I was like, "Oh, fucking
Mhm.
cunt." But I was with friends. I ended up pulling on that night anyway, so,
Mhm.
big deal. Like, I pulled, night game, whatever. And 2 days later was her birthday, and I said to myself, "Mm, I've got bitch, like, I'm gonna get one over you." So I
Mhm.
wished her happy birthday, and then she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, let's make up for last time." And I was like, "You know what? Perfect. Are you a vegan or a vegetarian?" "Oh, no, not at all." I was like, "All right, perfect." Then I sent her an invitation to a really, really, really nice steak restaurant.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, because I knew that basically the original invite was not good enough for her to
Mhm.
bother and flake, right? So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, so I'm gonna increase the invite. Because you see how a lot of times those dinners can be like when you use a venue in order to go for a date. It's almost like muddies the water, so you don't really know whether she goes for you or for the venue type of stuff. And
Right.
there was no problem this time with the venue, as I supposed, right? As I was like, like you get that sense over time. And I was like, all right. 7:30 comes in. I was like, I give her a call. "Hey, sorry, I'm a bit late. I had to close some trades with my broker. I was midway on the cab. I couldn't make it. Blah blah blah. Do you mind? Um, do you mind coming over? I'm ordering a cab. I'll have champagne at home. Whatever." Started basically just
Mhm.
bullshitting. I don't know how to cook shit, right? So I ordered some Thai. She arrived home. She was dressed to the nines, and I didn't even have to do shit. I was quite happy about that.
Mhm.
Um, and considering she's like a rich bitch and shit, like fucked her for 50 quid. Sorted. I was like, you trying to basically do one on me? I'm gonna shortchange you. But
Mhm.
because karma is one hell of a shit, right?
Mhm.
3 months later, I I start chatting with this girl, right?
Mhm.
And I asked her, "What are you doing Thursday evening?" And she's like to me, "Oh, well, I'm actually going to dinner with a hot Frenchman." I was like, "Hmm." Actually, I love the game. I love that line. And I was like,
Mhm.
I normally don't do dinner date on the first date, but
Mhm.
this time I will do an exception. So I was like, again, I'm very flexible depending upon how the setup, the narrative, whatsoever. End up going on a dinner date.
Mhm.
Uh, then we went to another place, and then we went to another thing. I sc- Normally it's harder when to score on a dinner date the first day because you have a lot of bullshit. And then after I fucked
Mhm.
her, I realized that she was a sister of the girl that I fucked, that I shortchanged earlier. 3 months later, 3 months earlier. So technically,
Oh,
me
wow.
avoiding paying the date. I'm in London. There's
Sheesh.
fucking 9 million people. So it's almost like the karma was fucking crazy. Where I didn't pay for a dinner date with one of the sisters. 3 months later, completely unrelated, I fucked the other sister, and I paid for for the dinner date I didn't pay originally. Point being is, point being is, and that's quite a long rant, but like, point being is, dinner date is what you make of them, right? It's like, are you
Yeah.
using them as a leverage factor? Are you using them because it's kind of just
Yes.
part of the sequencing? Are you using them because you want sex? Are you using them because you feel you're never gonna get her? Those are not the right mental health space for you to have a dinner date, right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, and going back to the power thing,
Mhm.
you give power to woman by making whatever she sets as a requirement a big
Right.
fucking deal for you.
Yes. Yes, well said,
Uh,
actually. Yeah, that's a great way to say it.
so yeah, sorry, I've taken a bit of the mic, but I thought this actual, this conversation about dinner date was quite interesting. But
No.
I think a lot of people on Twitter just kind of like they just want a clean cut solution, a clean cut,
Yep.
like A, B, C. They don't want to think. They don't want to think. But really, it's about do what feels right for you, right? Because and
Right.
actually think about this, right? And maybe that's a great segue for the next point, which is, you know, a lot of time people will want to segment their masculinity in opposition or with the validation of women. Meaning
Mhm.
by that, is your masculinity driven by woman, or is your masculinity
Mhm.
an invariant of woman?
Yes. Yeah, that was all very some very good examples that provoke quite a bit of thought, and that was it was really good to say dinner dates are what you make of them, and realistically, if you are fully resolved in masculinity and everything like that, you'll feel like the world and dating belongs to you and it doesn't belong to them. And the only way, like you said, you feel like it belongs to them is if you have given them something emotionally, which is that masculinity. And now, inevitably, you're going to have to. The nature of the game is men initiate most of the time, initiate in some fashion upon sight of a woman, which to some degree grants her something at all times. That is, you want to bang her. But to define yourself as to the degree of success of that is that problem that understandably comes from our instincts, our hunter gatherer instincts and everything, but also does a poor job of integrating all of the other influences and all the other feelings that women experience. And it also does a poor job of making your life what you want it to be. I think of a time where when I was in college, I had like you know how it goes with like the phones and everything. I don't upgrade them for the longest time, and so I
Mhm.
had like an iPhone 5 or something like that for a few years, and then it was my birthday, so my parents wanted to be kind and upgrade my phone when I came back home and everything. So I did that, and it was a time where the iPhone 10 was out, I think, and they
Mm.
upgraded me to an iPhone 7. So I come back, and there's this girl that I was pretty friendly with. We did a lot of studies together in math and everything, and so we were in the math student room and she sees me whip out the phone. She goes, "Ah, like Marchese, you got a new phone." And she's sort of smirking and all this stuff. She was like, "Damn." So I was like, I said, "Let me ask you, like, is that like seriously an unironically noticeable thing here at our college? Like, I will go to a bar and that will make a difference." And she said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And that always stuck in my head. That always stuck in my head because I thought, you and I both know rationally, at best, the phone thing communicates some kind of status, I guess, whatever. But
Mhm.
even then, how status often defines, or a lot of women mischaracterize status as just, being a part of the crowd in a way. Like they characterize disagreeableness sometimes as not status, even though it actually is, because
Mm.
it provokes sensations of disagreement and discontent and emotionalism and everything. And so I always thought about that, and I thought that is instructive for the male population to understand that if you're rejected in any way, you cannot take that as an inference to your masculinity, because it could be something as simple as her artificially inserting the rejection because you don't have the latest iPhone or something like that, or the friends or whatever, or even better, it's not even her rejecting your authentic intrinsic masculine identity. It's rejecting her perception of it and rejecting what she thinks or because it's not going the precise way of how she thinks it's supposed to go. And a lot of guys go into this type of stuff thinking, well, that's necessarily cope. Like, are you getting laid or not type of thing. And there is that accountability. I think we've talked about this all the time, that extreme accountability of if you're not getting laid instantaneously, it's because you're a fucking beta pussy bitch or something like that.
Mm.
But we tend to take that a little bit too far, to neglect the chaos of the world, to neglect all of the things that we are unprepared for, to neglect that there are competing feelings and evolutionary drives. The woman might turn you down because she has her own pathology of low self-esteem. So it's really instructive there, a changeover that I think a lot of guys need to understand in this space. That is, you cannot really do that outsourcing type stuff. And of course, the heuristic I always thought of that really transitioned me out of that, it was somebody said, you know, considering the only way for men to have assigned value as a consequence of women's approval is like the most emasculine thing you could do. It's the most subordinating thing you could do. It's the most inferior betaizing thing you could do to subordinate your sense of self and value to women's arbitration. So that's always been a major point that it seems like we can't repeat enough.
I mean, I'll say something, right? It's going to be sounding less conceptual than what you're saying, right? But I get exactly what you're saying. If we were to assess my masculinity or even my fucking, manhood, whatever, from lay count, from uh, success with girls whatsoever, I was the most successful when I was the most insecure, wet wipe that just knew how to hide it enough. But the point I'm saying is it's like, and low self-esteem guy there was. What does that tell me?
Right,
That tell me that women are attracted to what they are. And it's
right,
like, you know, say for example, I'm gonna use an example of a fucking masculine boss babe. Do you think she's attracted to a fucking feminist bitch? No, she's gonna be attracted to a masculine guy. Will that be reciprocal? Well, I don't know. But but the point being is like you are more likely gonna, for example, use the example of the avoidance. Avoidance is all the craze, right, on TikTok. But if you look at what
right,
avoidance is, right, technically, you know, it's
right,
someone that is fearful and using
right.
creating protection mechanism in order to avoid being confronted to a situation that they cannot cope with, right? And if you think about it, and it's like, look at, for example, the example, there's a question of vulnerability, right? If you look at the idea of vulnerability, it's like if you're willing to be vulnerable as a man, that is actually a sign of strength, because the
Yes,
fact that you cannot that the fact that you could have like a negative feedback loop from being vulnerable because a woman misconstrues that as weakness completely misses the fact that if you're willing to be vulnerable, it's because you can sustain the impact of it being non-rewarded, whereas the
yes,
one that is being avoidant because he's too fragile to support the cost of it, of his vulnerability not being welcomed or being weaponized against him. Who is the weakest bitch out of the two? The avoidant, not the one that is willing to be vulnerable. But
right.
because of women's surface level perspective, they will see the surface level of the avoidant being, oh, he's not emotionally manipulable. No, he's just a weak ass bitch. But you basically just appreciate the weak ass bitch because you're a weak ass bitch yourself, and you need
Yeah,
all those ego mechanism in order for you to believe otherwise. But if you know psychology to a to a basic level, you understand that it's all fugazi.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and, your date's, stories also told me a lot more about how simultaneously women, conversely, try to assert or outsource their sense of value and femininity to men, but to men specifically by gaining, something from men. For us, it's sexuality. For them, it's sort of like this nebulous thing that at best they try to define as taking them out on those dinner dates or something like that, or commitment, some kind of emotional investment, because that's the only way they could really feel safe, like they have your feelings in their hands like that, because physically they're not. And so they will, amidst feelings of inferiority and amidst low self esteem, they will outsource their sense of value to whether or not men do something like take them out on dinner dates. And it becomes this neurotic transaction wherein in order to get that, they also have to subject themselves to some kind of vulnerability of trying to get that, because if they try to get that and fail, that tells them they actually are like a inferior or worthless or something like that. So they play all of these dynamics of being really like uh seething and like sort of tense in these interactions about like where we're going on what date for what reason what day and something like that. And so
Yeah,
they're very preoccupied, similarly, conversely, with assigning themselves value by how many men they could get them on dates or something like that.
because it's becoming a pissing contest within the board of bitches group chat.
Yeah.
FYI, the board of bitches, meaning by that the group chat of girls. Anyway, it's, the thing is, it's like you have all those resonance blocks, whether it's TikTok, whether it's a board of bitches, whether it is, the IG group, whatever they're gonna post on this, on that. Everything becomes a means for negotiation, a means for transaction, and it kills
Yes.
actually any avenue for actual genuine interaction, which is why people are just mistrusting. Right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Uh, oh, sorry. Were you gonna keep going?
no, 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 not at all. Go on.
Okay. Um, yeah, and you mentioned earlier the evaluation of vulnerability and the cowardice essentially was the word that came to mind with men who are avoidant in this way. And I think this was actually one of those examples whereas we're saying, well, actually, that you're that scared or that you're that scared of vulnerability is cowardice, is the less masculine, is the weak thing. But it's remarkable because I think you and I both know that because of the feminization of psychology and stuff, they've weaponized that to essentially tell that to men and hope that the interpretation is like completely just keel over. And so a lot of men become resistant simultaneously, both because of cowardice, but also because,
Mm.
well, last time I heard that, it's akin to hearing "be the nice guy" or something like that. Last time I heard that, it didn't work. It got my feelings hurt and all that because they misunderstood it as make yourself like a totally belly up.
Yeah,
And
but
so I'll say real quick that you're talking when you mention the transactionalism, there's a number of people who make that transactionalism point that are kind of like not developing it and becoming kind of cringe with it. But
mhm.
we're talking about it effectively. And one of the examples I use for a lot of people and clients and everything is this problem does never seems to carry over in friendship, and there's
Yes.
people who have issues with friends, but I always tell my friends or clients or something like that, think about the times that you hang out with your friends. You're not thinking twice ever about, I mean, sometimes this happens, but rarely it does. You're not thinking twice about whether they're paying you enough, whether you drive versus they drive, whether this or that, this transaction you want to hang out, you just say, "Hey, let's hang out." If they can't or you can't, you don't feel it as some sort of existential rejection. And then when you are hanging out, the hanging out is not a transaction of anything other than me for you, my existence for your existence, bro for bro, joke for joke. And I try to tell people the nature of relating to women is, of course, not fully the same thing, but it's supposed to carry over that same structure of that piece of not having to think twice about every last little interaction.
Yeah, I mean, again, but that requires a few things. It requires first something that must not be made overly uh, evident that is transactional on both sides,
Yeah.
right? On one side or the other. And that's the first bit, because then if it becomes overly transactional, the balance between the humanity of side of things and the transactional side of things is just not there, right? The other thing, which
Right.
is when you're dealing with friends, you don't want to fuck your friends. I mean, maybe unless
Right.
she's hot, but so there
Yeah.
needs to be a little bit more of a romantic side to it. Otherwise, if guys were so into transactionalism, they would buy horse, but a lot of guys would not, I mean, lease horse, but a lot of guys would not want to lease horse. So the romantic side, there's still been as it carries a little bit more weight for guys. But at the end of the day, everything is transactional. But the idea of seduction is to forget the transactional side of the interaction,
Yes.
at least in the very short term, which is what's lacking, I think, a lot now. That's why people are less dating, because everything is become anti-seductive. The the other thing,
Yeah.
which actually I want to say, think, and I'm gonna go on to what you're saying about the friend stuff, right? Which is, and I don't know if it's been like that for you, but for me, the strongest friendship that I've had have been after there's been a mutual share of vulnerability. You know that those guys,
Yeah.
and they're there for the good. Like, even when you can have like a big like raw with one and everything, it's like they're there for good, right? Like they're no, they're your family shit, right? But with women it's different, because, well, first there's a polarity thing, right? So it's like vulnerability equal weakness, so therefore you must say it from a position of strength, right?
Hmm.
So you need to have like aka your masculinity credit, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
and well, the dosage needs to be right, in the sense that it can't be first of all, you ain't gonna fucking cry your eyes out, right? It could be
Hmm. Yeah.
something that is very kind of like, light, right? But regardless, in general, I'd suggest to most guys that are in a relationship, don't venture there. Why? Not because I'm telling you, strong men do this shit and all that. For me, I'm always about optimization
Yes.
of s- how something is positively or negatively skewed, right? It's from my betting and fucking trading and poker days, right? It's like, is this move equity, expected value plus or expected value negative, right? That's
Hmm.
really it, right? Because at the end of the day, even though from a purely ideological, conceptual, I mean, just intellectual perspective, v- people were leading with vulnerability show that they're secure. Bitches won't
Hmm.
understand like that. That's just, every guy that have done this shit will tell you the same shit
Yeah.
because I always joke. It's like women have longer the computer memory before computers even arrived. You say something
Hmm.
7 years ago, trust me, she'll remember, and if she feels the need to weaponize it, she will.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's because they feel everything much more strongly, such that, and when you feel something alongside a memory, it sticks with you much more fervently. I'll say on your value point, I think, a lot of guys still don't really understand what exactly it is they want. Their best effort is to say, "Well, I want to get laid" or something like that. But then the question becomes, what does getting laid do for you? Like, what does that do for you, your life, your happiness, your joy, and everything? And much of the time, that's where that pathology emerges. That is, well, there's some kind of feeling payoff that they're not even sure how to put into words. And that's because it's so intrinsic, it's so deep and everything. And then just simultaneously, we're all not never really brought up, trained to understand any of this. In part, we
Mhm.
understand it all intrinsically. Makes me think of you remember the old Real Social Dynamics RSD pickup artist guys.
Of course.
One of them.
That's why. Yeah, that's where I got.
Go ahead.
That's where I got. That's where I've got my my teachings. So yeah, I
Yeah,
know them.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And one of the guy's programs, RSD Max, his program was The Natural. And The
Yeah.
Natural was about the theory that is plausible. That is, we all know how to do this. Like, this is all deeply programmed into us. We all know how to be a man. We all know how to be masculine because our thousands upon thousands of years of selection optimized for something like that. So it's just a matter of not letting your conscience or these cognitive frames or rationalizations um, get in the way to arrive at clearer ideas of what you're doing, and then what, like you said, with value, what you want out of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, at the end of the day, even if you think about it, right, from the red pill perspective, right? What is the core tenet of the red pill? It's like, what do you want? You
Yes.
know, sometimes like, I had a friend just earlier. I was DMing me, right, and he was like, well, I'm in facing situation, and it's like, this is a pros, this is a con. This is the other person. I'm not going to go into details because obviously privacy reasons.
Hmm.
And I said, all right, what do you want? You know, guys are so used to basically doing shit that is not that is not to their own benefit. They never ask themselves what do they fucking want.
Yeah.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It is a world of a nebula of thoughts, feelings, emotions, seemingly conflating and conflicting and everything like that. And um, you're right that, and perhaps this is like a good sort of segue topic. You mentioned the red pill tenants and everything,
Mhm.
and I think it's there's become this sort of schism now where there's a group of people who want to take the red pill and, like, in a way take some kind of like credit of masculinity to it, of, oh, that's all real and true, but simultaneously placate women by saying something like, well, yeah, but they're leading men astray. Oh, they're teaching men to be manipulative. Oh, they're teaching men to freaking be jerks or something like that. And I say, well, first of all, you people don't even know what you're talking about, because you're not even referring to red pill, you're referring to game. And it's just like, dude, it's 2026. Game is like old. Like at this point, game, like
Hey, I'm
RSD,
old.
yeah,
Too old. Sorry.
yeah, game, uh, RSD, and even before that, the mystery method, Neil Strauss's The Game. It's like this is like classical Greek philosophy at this point, and you people are just now like worried that game is manipulative or something like that. And it is this schism of also just flagrantly like misunderstanding what all of this stuff articulates, demonstrates, and specifies. Because, like you said, the one of those first tenets of red pill is what do you want? Like, how is that something objectionable to these people? But there's this emergent group of men trying to like assert masculinity by saying, by like edge lording, by disagreeableness, by saying, well, that's not it. That they don't get it. That's not how it is with women. And then what do they say instead? Oh, well, hypergamy.
Right, like just a second, because I think there's like two different points: the edge lording and the schism between the earnest and proper intellectual and experienced type versus those that are still operating and cultivating this space of bitterness. Right? When you're
Mhm.
telling me about those, like I'll go first on the one that you say, like basically just doing some you know grocery shopping of the red pill. Be like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it has some truths, but you know, it's looking to manipulate women. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Like, would you find are those type of guys?
I think you could just sort of see it. There's a handful. There's like this group on X that I have, I'm mutuals with and okay and everything, but I've perused some of their spaces. There isn't anyone big name doing this. It's sort of like the underground of some of these people trying to make content and all that. But perhaps you've seen Brooke. She feuded.
I know Brooke. Yeah, I know Brooke.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they do this all the time. The and not to shit on them or anything, but it is becoming just prolific and demonstrative of how they just fundamentally never even like read any of the literature on it.
Mm. Yeah, because a lot of time people conflate PUA, red pill. A lot of time. Sometimes people say I'm red pill. Sometimes people say I'm PUA. I'm just like niggas. I'm
Yeah.
neither. I'm just
Yeah.
French. I'm just French. That's what you can call me, French. No,
Yeah.
like thing is, it's so it's quite funny because we are talking about the MBTI earlier, right? And we want to put people into boxes.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, I've delved into the PUA. Yeah, I've delved into the red pill. Yeah, I've delved into the black pill. Yeah, I've delved into the masculinity type of shit.
Right.
The same way I've delved into the fucking psychology, but that doesn't mean make me a fucking psychologist.
Right.
The same way, the same way I dealt with the finance, poker, everything. Like, but people are so narrow minded that they just feel that you can be as unidimensional as them, right? But now that we kind of so basically it's just people that are trying to find a market segment using the teaching of the red pill and just trying to reframe it in a like in a positive way. It's a bit like, let's say you're a far right party and then you have people coming into the far right parties that want to make the party a little bit more palatable at the expense of
Yeah.
the core tenets of the party.
Yeah.
Entryism, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
um Generally that doesn't succeed. I mean, from a pure political history perspective, that doesn't succeed. Um,
Yeah.
but in terms of you said you also made like a differentiation between the experienced type versus those still operating and cultivating this space of bitterness. Can you expand a bit more on that?
Yeah. So it there's a version of all of this stuff that is it's trying to indict women as malevolent. So maybe bitterness isn't the word because that's sort of become tiresome, and that sounds
Hmm.
like it is, saying we essentially are this, but it's nobody who's good on this stuff. You, me, Vermilion, some of these guys.
Hmm.
It is this version of this stuff where it's almost like trying to assert that amidst that sense of powerlessness, it's trying to regain power by operating within the cultural power frame that is like effeminate ethics. So things like, compassion above all else, be nice, be inclusive, this sort of thing. And so what they're trying to do is regain male power by framing women as like malevolent with this stuff. And I'll use hypergamy as the biggest example
Mhm.
because you see people just like utter, oh, hypergamy this, hypergamy that. And they don't really even, some of them, I'm not even sure they even know what that means anymore. And
Mhm.
you could tell that they utter it with this feeling, with this sensation. They're instructing you how to feel, which is this feeling that, oh, they're big fat meanie jerks. Because what is hypergamy? Well, the average definition is, well, that means that if she's with you and there's like a guy taller, she's gonna go fuck him instead. And they get like really crazy about it, and it's everything from assigning malevolence because that makes women sound like big fat meanie jerks, and
Mhm.
it is an extreme expression of castration anxiety. That's perhaps one of the biggest castrations you could ever experience. And
Mhm.
just the assigned malevolence you can gather from really interrogating what they're specifying, because it's like, okay, oh, under what circumstance does she do that? Does if you're 5'11" and the guy is or well, let's use different numbers because those numbers people make an argument for. Let's say 6'3" and 6'4". Is she going to leave you for the 6'4" guy? Under what circumstances is she going to leave? If you make $100,000 a year and he makes $105,000 a year, is she leaving you for then? Is there a risk assessment? Is there a risk evaluation? Uh, are women doing that because they're just such meanies? They just want to be mean or something like that? And even just the idea of it is, what is it? It's trying to get the best possible deal you can. I've said before that everyone everywhere tries to get the best possible deal you can. You go to the car dealership, you are trying to get him, and it's a zero sum game. Like your number one win at the car dealership is getting a car for absolutely $0. What's his,
Mhm.
the car dealership's absolute win is getting you to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for the car. So, um, all that's to say that the natural structure of anything, to include dating, is everyone trying to get the best possible deal they could get. With women, that weighing a little bit more heavily on women's consciousness because their chance at reproduction is much more what's the word? Sensitive, chaotic. It is it feels to them like they don't really have many chances to miss. So that's my whole sort of thing about those
Mhm.
characters that really make it about assigning women malevolence.
No, it's you know, uh, even if you think about my hypergamy, right? It's just one variable. It's literally just one variable. Like, think about it
Yeah.
this way, in the sense of it does help understand a lot of things. Don't get me wrong, right? But I mean, it could be that there are other things that comes into play, cultural references. Like, I'll give you an example, right? Say I come here, right? I'm non-white. I mean, I'm going to a white country, right? I'm non-white. I am not of the same culture. I mean, but I'm not of the same nationality, right? And I'm dealing with a girl that is going to be 23, 24.
Mm,
I need to make a certain amount more money than an equally
mm,
white guy for her to present me to her parents.
mhm,
Even though I can be better on so many different things than the other white guy, but because there are cultural reference points that are
mm,
gonna be overweighted, my program is out the window. Or say, for example, you're with a girl, right? And she's already well invested in you, you're already well invested in her. The guy need to be that much better because of the already existing investment. You know what I'm saying? So it's
mhm.
like, it's like it's not because Mister is 5 centimeter extra taller than you, then she's gonna do good with him. Again, it's about as we say in French, de toute raison garder, meaning by that, like put things into perspective. And it's like people again, same thing as I was saying, right? They just want to put you into one box. They just want to find that
Mhm.
silver bullet explanation. So red pill sold them that with hypergamy, and then boom. But then they don't understand the reason why things happen because they'd be like, at one point, something be happening to them is like, but how did she end up with someone worse than I? Oh, I wonder.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
like, Well, because you've
Well,
just
there's also things like, I mean, the classics of, women can't help themselves. Some women can't help themselves and like date like a street thug or something like that. That doesn't make money. That isn't 6 feet tall. So
mhm,
it's like, what are you really talking about with a lot of these characters? And it makes me think about how there's this underlying presumption which has some plausibility. That is that women are a little bit more subject to their instincts, to their feelings, to their impulses, and everything. But
mhm.
the average person, like men and women, women more so, a little bit more than men, but nevertheless, we all have instincts that we're subject to that we all actually manage to sequester every single day. Speaking of the psychology from earlier, one book from Freud was Civilization and Its Discontents, and it constructs the psyche for all of the things, all of the instincts we've all agreed to place to the side for the benefit of civilization and cooperation. There are some obvious ones like don't kill somebody because you don't like them. And then there are some more interesting ones like, well, realistically, there's no law telling you have to eat with a utensil, but there's this felt uh, social shame consequence of not eating with utensils and eating with your hands, of course, excluding some of the foods for which it is acceptable. So, what that sets us up with is that men have instincts and feelings upon seeing somebody else who's attractive as well, and perhaps even more attractive to the current girl. So, I always ask these guys, do you feel compelled instantaneously to immediately leave and try to go hit on that girl in front of your girl? Much of the time we don't, and a counter argument is, well, that's because men can't. And it's like, okay, well, right, men can't because there's a significantly less of a guarantee of sexuality. That's the
Yeah.
conquest there that would transition it over. But simultaneously, that right there tells us that, well, perhaps women don't instantaneously leave every second they can because there's no guarantee of, call it emotions, call it commitment, call it resources upon leaving. The only guarantee for them is in leaving you is they're going to get some other cock. And while they might do that, you might have a whore on your hands who will do something like that, a fickle, impulsive whore or something like that. Inevitably, they have a risk assessment as well, and
Mhm.
even within that risk assessment, there's also there is an agency element. There is an interpersonal, sociable agency element, and even that is that like women can have the sovereignty to say, well, I'm not going to do that. Even just in the context of it's more comfortable to be where I'm at right now. And even in the context of instincts, we did simultaneously evolve instincts to pair bond, to even like extensively bond and things like that. Because had we not, we would have died off a long time ago because every woman would have humped, every alpha male, and every alpha male would have his like dick burnt off, and all those women would die because that man is like incapacitated and dead. So obviously, we evolved something a little bit more than just women want to fuck the chatter guy than you. And I'll say, lastly, that they sort of overlook this part instructs that a lot of these guys think that women are operating in maleness, that is like sexuality as the supreme goal, supreme telos, and they're also operating on this projection of, well, that's what I would do if I could. So
Yeah. You see, it's like if you've been in relationship, or if you've seen people in relationship, or if you've coached people in relationship, or even if you, pick up the pieces after someone has been broken up from a relationship, aka me, uh, what you'll notice is that woman goes through this phase called the resentment phase. And that
yes,
generally is required before they drop your fucking ass. And what does that mean is they are puking yourself out, and that's where either she fucks someone within that period or just
mhm,
after when she broke up with you, because that's their emotional hedging or
mhm,
emotional insurance policy that you're just a piece of shit. So then
yeah,
she can move along emotionally from doing that. The guy will just see, oh, she fucked someone else. No, nigga, she was already checking out, and you were just 2 or 3 months behind. You know,
yeah,
and and that just shows you that basically when they fuck someone, I mean, not always. Sometimes they can go to Vegas and just get fucked because they got drunk, but even then, it's because women don't put themselves into position where they could cheat if they don't already have thought about cheating. But then afterwards, it's all about narratives about how she's not accountable. But there's
right,
always that sovereignty, that agency, right? But a lot of times there's many different ways, reason why women cheat. Sometimes it's vengeance, sometimes it's, it's just, like, oh, it's happened in Vegas, Sometimes it's because proximity, because of a work husband, sometimes it's how do you call it? Just because she's picking you out. But once you understand the variety of reason why that is, and you realize that actually they're not all better than you, or they're not all worse than you understand that very like randomness, your personal situation, the dynamic, create a risk reward situation for her that can be completely different from one another, explaining why she does something beyond just hypergamy.
Right. Yeah, there's all these like competing thoughts, feelings, and factors. These guys presuming that it strictly operates in sexuality the same way that it operates in sexuality just for them, certainly informs a narrowness of the mind. And you mentioned that a lot of this starts to relate to the accountability spurging. And that further demonstrates that there's this idea amongst men that women do not face accountability in a way, uh, in terms of direct tangible consequence a lot of the times, but these guys are really more so alluding to emotional consequence, and they only think that they don't have emotional consequence because nothing a woman does will really ever, except getting like obese, will ever stop her from being able to get laid. And a lot of the centrality of the male psyche is even all of the stuff about self-improvement, learning, reading, and all of that confidence and all of this stuff. Of course, it still will always, you try to be as transcendent as possible, but of course, it still will always carry an element of it upgrading your sexual market value, I guess. And men feel immediately that they will not have access to women if they're not doing something or having some kind of energy to that. And so they sort of feel it as women get to coast along their lives because they don't need a career to attract a man or something like that. But of course, that always conflates the goal, that conflates it as, well, sure, they still get to have access to sexuality. But for them, what they want and need is much more nuanced, complex than that. And as you said, with the myriad of reasons that they'll cheat or something like that, or uh, monkey branch, um, instructs or also connects in this idea that there's more to it, that to them, than sexuality. It's also very trite to say, "Oh, well, girls like feelings" or something like that, or
Mm.
commitment. So,
Like I remember I'm in an article, like for example, like this guy to be thinking like, a girl that sleeps with you on the first night, she's got genuine desire. No, not particularly. Sometimes she's just horny. Sometimes she want to use you to get over an ex. Sometimes it's like there's so many different reasons, right? But again, people just want like, generally black and white thinker, they want to have like A equal B equals C, and it's like it depends. It's like same shit. Like someone will tell me well, women don't really care about money. Okay, so tell that to a girl from LA, right? Good luck. Like,
right.
you know, it's like, again, it's like, it's all about looks. I mean, until it's not, it's like, it's all about looks when
Yeah,
she's 22, but then at 44, maybe not.
right, right. Yeah. And the need for this heuristic, like, oh, if she doesn't fuck you the very first night, it becomes neurotic, and it's a neurotic safety guarantee. A lot of these guys, even upon receiving that,
Mm,
well, it's a catch-22. It's like with women's shit tests being a catch-22,
mm,
and women rightfully actually complain about this, is they'll listen to that, they'll say, "Okay." They'll bang a guy upon meeting him, they like him, they think he's attractive, and then suddenly he disappears and everything, and it's like, "Okay, well, you can't really say this stuff then, if you can't really say that this safety guarantee will provoke you to let your guard down, because it doesn't let your guard down, because you've contingent contended it hinged it upon uh something that has to sort of repeat and be provided continuously, in a manner that'll never satisfy you, because this stuff that you need, this safety that you need, has to come from within. Moreover, um this there's a element to it that you're talking about, which is that there aren't all these easily defined, nice, neat categorical heuristics. And I would say that a lot of the masculine courage and strength is in managing, or fearlessly or even fearfully, but doing it anyway, managing to operate in these gray areas, these nebulous interactions, these complications, these feelings, these things that aren't well defined, because the human experience and dating, it will never really fully be well defined. There's all of this element of this psychology, this interpersonality, communication, emotions, all of this stuff is fairly nebulous and a gray area, and the need to systematize it as a product of emotional safety is precisely the least grounding thing that you could have.
Yeah, least grounded, least masculine. If you want to know what holds the frame inside the relationship, is the one that can be the most comfortable with uncertainty and randomness and
Yeah.
chaos. Because all of that defines your outcome independence. Outcome independence is attractive because then it's more, the person feels it's more geared towards them, your action, rather than the outcome you seek out of them. Therefore, they're not a product, they're actually someone that you go and vibe
Yeah.
with. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, you did. Yeah, you cut out for a moment. I heard,
Yeah, go on.
I hear you now. I'm just trying to remember what the last thing I said was, operating, or what you said was operating in that, comfort with uncertainty. And
Okay.
that was the last
So
thing.
basically, yeah, don't worry, I'll do some editing. But like, it's about the person that has a frame inside the relationship is the one that is the most comfortable navigating with inside uncertainty, with randomness, with chaos, because that defines outcome independence. And outcome independence is attractive. Why? Because it makes it about the person rather than about the outcome, because outcome equals agenda. Agenda is deeply unattractive because it decenters a person from the other person. It makes it about, makes you non-present, and the person is seen as a tool rather than as a human being, and that makes you not present as well. And that's why,
Yeah.
I hop on about outcome independence. It's
Yes.
and even from a woman's perspective, right? I'll give you an example. Woman calls me, right? Straight to the whole house date, right? I was like, oh, happy date, right? Uh, I felt like I was dig dash. Like, she was very, what do you call it? Very uh, aloof with me. I was like, oh, I was surprised. I was surprised, right?
Mm.
And then a few days later, I mean, she was fit and all that, right? But I was like, a few weeks later, I'm like, bitch didn't even call me back. I was like,
Yeah.
and then I started questioning myself. I was like, oh, interesting. But you see, all of those things, all of those things creates loops inside your head, right? And it's like, and maybe she just wanted to just have like some nice, Father Christmas dicking. But point being is, you never know, and that's the beauty
Yeah.
is when you never know, you are more
Yeah.
attractive.
Yeah. You can have like fun within that. You can have like fun within that it's a gray area. And like you said, outcome independence. I'm so like I'm so struck by how much I surf Twitter and everything, and I really don't see people fully embodying that concept. And you could even feel outcome independence as like an intrinsic evolved mandate in your neurotransmitters. Like, I remember as early as just when I was a teenager, like I remember feeling um, outcome independence as like as like an attractive quality. I remember feeling shit tests, and I remember feeling them as shit tests of, oh, carry this for me, oh, this sort of thing. And I remember feeling something wrong with that and feeling like a compulsion to say no. And so somehow some of these guys don't understand that. They've managed to a little bit understand what it feels like to be used. But if your only guarantee is, well, instead of being used, I'm just going to use, you're forever at this security dilemma. It's like the Cold War. It's like, you know, uh, don't use your nuke on, and I'll use mine. You know, you can't tell Russia not to have nukes because then they're afraid that you're going to use your nukes, and vice versa. So similarly with people, it's this need and compulsion to use each other, and the use there isn't even in just money or dinner or sex, it speaks deeply to our feelings. It feels like a use, and it goes into that hunter gatherer transaction of, if you do the dinner, it's not that she's heckin' a gold digger or something like that. It literally feels to your brain like you caught an animal, you skinned it and everything, and you fed it to her with this, hey, I'll do that if you have my children. And then when it's not sexual thereafter, it feels to you like, oh, well, I was used, and it threatens us. It threatens our hunter gatherer instincts because, well, now you've wasted the resources that are much more consequential, much more urgent than they are in the modern context, and vice versa. Women will feel like, okay, well, if she humps you and you just are aloof and distant and everything, well, now she's going to be vulnerable in her pregnancy. She's going to be vulnerable as a woman, and then she's going to be vulnerable in taking care of the child. And so it speaks deeply to our existential survival instincts, but simultaneously, we were also gifted with rationalism, and we were gifted with integrating that into our rationalism, into our instincts to arrive at this uh, management or emotional regulation to know when those feelings emerge, but they're not as consequential or as real as they feel.
You see, here you're talking about emotional management, right? I'll
Yeah.
put next step, anti-fragility, right? If you want to be anti-fragile in that setup, is you're a guy. You basically you see dinner just as a cost of doing business, all right? Just be like, yeah,
Mhm.
whatever. I don't care if I'm going. I don't care if I'm fucking, if I'm not fucking. Who fucking cares? I go to dinners because I enjoy dinner. I go to restaurants and all the time. I don't cook. You know, all this type of shit, right?
Yeah.
And she just happened to be along for the ride, right? I may never hear from her again. It doesn't fucking
Yeah.
matter. At least, hopefully, she was good enough company. I cannot guarantee
Yeah.
that, but I'm a gambler. I'll just do that. And at the end of the day, it's like
Yeah.
if you go on to a dinner with a girl and you don't expect anything from her, you don't even call her back,
Mhm.
and you didn't leak any type of agenda onto the dinner date, you're already like communicating so much value
Yeah.
that she'll chase after, right? It's like, okay, that's the first thing. The second thing, if you're a woman, the woman that could actually literally pull guys out of, out of thin air, even guys that they were actually not as good as, right? Were the women that were fucking and never calling by the guys back? Because the guy's ego was so tight. It's like, hold on, she the bitch not calling me back.
Yeah.
And then they'd be, but like that, you see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's like, and I said to women, like, don't like, it's like if you use sex, I mean, forget about body count and shit, right? But if you use sex as a complete mean in order to be anti-fragile, where it costs you nothing in your mind, in your spirit, with the guy, and literally, you know, do everything that all the other bitches don't do. First of all, you single yourself out, and then after that, you don't even call the guy after. Not only you'll feel bruised in his ego because he will feel used, but
Yeah.
you are already showing to him that he ain't the shit, right?
Right.
And while you're the guy with the other girl, it's like, hold on, he's not like all those motherfuckers I have to basically fight in order to get a dinner with. And then on top of that, he's not asking me for something extra. Who is this motherfucker? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's anti-fragility, all right? So it's like you can, depending upon how you narrate, how you structure, how you angle everything, you can literally convey a completely different image for the same action.
Yeah. Yeah. And even in the context of the dinner date, like on some, like we do have to acknowledge, like I do feel for women on some level because there are guys who will get really, you could feel it. They could feel in the dinner date that he's just like gonna lose his fucking mind if she doesn't like suck his cock in the car thereafter. And
Mhm.
a lot of men are like that. And you could just even feel it in the intensity. Like, women are right to complain about something like that and right to complain about things like men instantaneously sending them like dick pics or their opening line. Their opening line is this effort to wax masculine, I don't give a fuck, to wax masculine disagreeableness, to wax masculine, oh yeah, you're not getting emotions out of me, you're just going to get my cock. And it's like, like you've I think I was perusing your Instagram actually, and you were talking about people who set boundaries instantaneously. And
Yeah.
like in a
That one
way,
is
men
actually
doing
yeah, yeah. No, but
go
by the
ahead.
way, that's my second most viewed videos. The woman got fucking pissed off at this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, men doing that is them trying to assert a boundary instantly, and you just come off so
Yeah.
defensive and so
Oh my God, yeah.
urgent, and and it's so existential to you. And then I'll say,
Yeah.
you're right that a lot of men don't understand this, but like women can use you for sex too. And like you
Yeah.
said, when she does and doesn't call back and doesn't ask for something in return, it'll bruise his ego, right? Because we want them to want that out of us. If they don't want that emotion or commitment out of us, that tells you that they don't actually fully value I think you had a tweet about this not too long ago. It was that women can almost consider, a lot of people are used to this. You obviously don't want to be like the cuck guy who's taking her out to dinner while she's railing somebody else. But
Of course.
there is something right to be said about how like women can use men for sex and consider them useless and consider them sort of pretty boys almost and use them to get off. And a lot of these guys will think, "Oh, this is great and everything," but you could see how that produces a latent sense of like subordination because she's in control of the nature of how you two relate. Whereas when she's trying to get something out of you that she doesn't control, like the commitment and emotionality, it actually does place you in that leverageable uh, power. And then, of course, like you said, if you're not, if you don't have an agenda, forgetting even it'll certainly do something to the ego if they have an ego. It will do something in the usual stuff about, oh, okay, abundance, status, blah, blah, blah. He gets laid enough. Other women like him. That's my heuristic, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes it might just be a breath of fresh air that you get it. And consequently, they'll just be relieved to be relating to a man that has somewhat of a social aptitude.
Social aptitude, not fucking retards and so
Yeah.
yeah, no, no, that's that's the thing. It's it's funny when you're talking about boundaries, right? It's I don't know if you will ever watch football. Anyway, you're gonna have the World Cup in the U.S. soon, and football. I'm talking U.S. Soccer, right? And
Mm.
right now you have something plaguing the Premier League, which is teams playing low blocks, low block defending. So it's two defensive team, right? And the dating market feels like two defensive teams, right? The female, the male. And everybody's so fucking busted that nobody want to actually expose themselves so that the ball is stuck in the middle and it's like watching paint fucking dry. And this whole thing about boundaries is exactly that. It's like everybody's, when you think about what actually makes a great interaction is the vibe, right? But when you lead an interaction by the requirement for boundaries and fucking and respect and all this shit, it's like yes, it's a background structure, but it's not like it's not what actually drives people to have actually a good interaction. It's like you're a salesman and you're selling terms and conditions. Like, yeah, but what about the product? What about the value? What about the benefits? What about the features? None of that exists because it's like everybody has been taken everybody has had their essence taken away from just all of this, you know, self-helpish pop psychology, you know, nonsense that has made people completely insipid, really.
Yes. Yeah, I read a couple years back. I started essentially with a lot of this stuff as like a self-help success bro, success grind, work hard, discipline type stuff. And
Mhm.
oddly enough, everyone does need to like go through something of a phase like that. But I did, to your point, come across. I read enough of the books. I actually have them still here on my bookshelf. And
Mhm.
after enough of those books, I was like, all right, like this is like you said, insipid, flavorless, and it is trite platitude. It is not really giving an answer. It just is sort of feel good, dopey, feelsy goodsy slop that provides those, like you said, those categorizations, those nice quippy. feel good lines that don't obviously aren't solving the human experience. If they were solving the human experience, there wouldn't be such a contention, and it becomes boring, like you said, like the soccer games where the ball is stuck in the middle.
You don't wanna watch, and I've I go to my friends and we watch the football and he's like, "Are you ready for a fucking bar fest?" It's like, "Yeah, please indulge me." You know, it's like it's more like catching up with him than actually watching the football.
Yeah.
Actually yeah, but actually there was another question that I thought was actually interesting that you mentioned was like, what do you do once quote unquote solve woman, and what does solving woman means?
Yeah, I think perhaps the best way to say it, although it forces a secondary definition, which is to reliably relate to women uh, to the degree to which you want to the degree to which it satisfies you, it fulfills you. I do operate on the more like Catholic bro element and the marriage element. I think it ultimately culminates in marriage, but at the very least, solving women such that you can reliably relate to them however you want, whenever you want. And I think it also entails coming across that piece in relation to women that we mentioned earlier. Now, of course, the secondary question is what do you get out of reliably relating to women and all of that, and that becomes that evaluation we mentioned earlier, which is what do you want essentially. So
Yeah.
because a lot of men think it all stops at women. Once they solve their version of solving women is getting laid, and then they think that's it. That's peak, that's culmination, that's transcendence, that's the final evolution. And of course, it obviously isn't. And you could just do a quick examination of the top dogs, the alpha success status guys that obviously get laid whenever they want, however they want. Do they seem fully satisfied, happy, and all of that? And the answer is obviously no. So I think that brings many men to the idea of transcendence, which is to go past your instincts, to go past your feelings. And I said in a tweet yesterday, the day before, or something like that, there's a flock to Christianity or really just religiosity overall. And I won't try to evangelize or anything, but
No, it's alright,
there's
don't worry.
there's you know, with the post-war culture, it became hedonism, it became pleasantries,
Yeah.
feelings, and all of that. And we said earlier, every man feels a mandate to transcend that, because what is that? That's congruence, that's leadership, that's self-control, that's the ability to withstand chaos, to withstand
Mhm.
uncertainty, like you said. And you feel that mandate, but it's a complex thing to solve because every cell in your body tells you you'll die if you try to do that, if you don't indulge in McDonald's or whatever. And so
Oh,
every man feels that mandate, and many men think that solving women is that mandate because it confers masculinity. But after solving women, after solving the house, having a place to live and eat, you're bored and you need something to do, and there's nothing left to do to check off your survival feelings boxes. So that's when it becomes, all right, I got the women thing. Now I need to figure out what to do to really be who I am. And most of the time, this does channel into career. Career is where a lot of people feel transcendence the most because it's you really get to do what you want. You really get to do something that you have a passion for that's inexplicable, that can't be explained by survival, evolutionary psychology.
mhm. You know, it's interesting you say, you don't worry about evangelizing the platform. You may be surprised, but I'm actually also Catholic. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
at the very I spent my did my Catholic my all my primary school was in Catholic school, even the last
Okay,
two.
nice. Yeah, yeah.
So don't worry, not I may not seem like a saint, but
Yeah.
I come from not too bad of a background.
There you go.
Maybe the id took over a bit too much.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
There you go. Yeah.
No, yeah. Thing is, it's like, and I think I was talking about it. I think it was Angel, right?
Yeah.
Was in the end, getting woman is not that complicated, right? That's about what do you do with it? What do you make of it, right? Like some people, they want a family, right?
Right.
Some people, it's like, some people don't want a family. But what was interesting was what you're talking about this, going back to spirituality. It's as you were talking about hedonism, during the Vietnam War, soon after the Vietnam War, like, within that area, and how everything went to escape velocity to the point that people ended up becoming soulless, and people
Yeah.
saw those soulless people. And then what happens is that they're like, do I want to become like them? And it's like, no. So you try to you have a course for meaning. The thing is, career don't mean much anymore because the average tenure of people in careers is very, very low. I mean, in companies, very, very low.
Right.
Right before, like, you had General Motors being almost like the big daddy, of a lot of families, right?
Right.
Now you don't have that, right? Like, if you stay 5 years in a company in general, I mean, it's quite an achievement. So you find yourself, okay. So the job is not really there. Careers, like, what's gonna happen with AI? I mean, good luck. You're like, so what is there, right? And it's like, oh well, there's religion.
Mm.
And sometimes it could be something like spirituality, like, I'm sure you have like a lot of California sects as well, God knows what, right? Or it could be like some fucking, shrooms or whatever, DMT shit, like people will just go in order to kind of like expel themselves. But, you know, there's this French expression, nature, la nature a horreur du vide. Okay, so nature is disgusted by the void. So you have to fill that void, right? And
Mhm.
it's what's happening. It's what's happening, and in a way, it's a good thing because you don't want to have too many busted Pillsbury's individuals.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's not great. I mean, because there comes a crossroad, right, where someone. And you see this, and it's quite funny. We're joking about you turning 30 recently, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's like, that's it, that's the wall. I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
done. You know, that even makes the argument, right? That uh this is actually the crossroads for both sexes. In the
Right.
sense that maybe you can give it a little bit later for guys.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say 35 for guys. I'm gonna give you some hope, Don't worry. No, but
Yeah.
no. But if by 30 for a woman you have not taken the right route, it's gonna be way, way, way harder, right?
Yeah.
By 35, I mean, basically you're going into the soulless route by 30. Like, say for example, you're married as a woman, right? At 30.
Right.
And then you divorce and everything. And you don't necessarily done the wrong route because you were already kind of like preset in the right frame of mind, right?
Right.
You just life happens, right? But like if you're just like a girl that's just kind of travel whoring, meaning by that just basically
Yeah.
collecting fucking passport stamps. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Generally, you come a bit busted mentally. You're not ready for a relationship. You're not ready for kids. You're not ready for a family, and all of that. Uh, and this is also another thing I've noticed, right? Because what I've done is I've dated like so many different ages, so many different segments, and something I'm gonna say is actually quite counterculture. I mean, like, go quite against the trend is you if you've dated, like, if you just basically had flings with single moms over, like, let's say 38, 42, whatever, and you had that with, childless women, the single moms
Mhm.
are so much nicer.
Yeah.
So more
Yeah.
because they were conditioned to be that way, whereas the other women were been more selfish, and that's what I was saying to you about like the soullessness
Yeah.
or the disposability that you feel towards, right? Like, and you see that, and you can tell generally after 30, outside of just the looks, whatever, it is a choice women make. And at 35 for guys, I mean, I'm not saying that they cannot repent, they cannot, redeem themselves, don't get me wrong, but generally they will be, it will be much harder. Right? Like for me, for example, I'm 36, right? I know I ain't turning the corner. I know I'm fucking busted. But I mean, I'll say that jokingly, but it's like, sometimes you've seen too much that you cannot go back. because
Yeah.
it will feel almost like you're lying to yourself knowing what you know. And it's better sometimes that for people to be able to grow to actually live a fulfilling life, to not visit and discover areas they shouldn't. It's a little bit like you know, like I would not want to go and try crack or heroin because
Mhm.
because I know I have an
Yeah.
addictive personality. And it's like, and then once you discovered that, it's very hard to go back from it. Some people can, but the odds are stacked against you, right?
Yeah.
And in a way, the effort for people to do in order to kind of like understand, okay, what are your priorities? Is it family? Is it, you know, relationship? Is it some type of traditional background? Do it early, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna be harder and harder. Not because external forces will define your route much more so than you will, and that's very deterministic and very French driven. But hey, you know, I'm French for a reason.
Yeah. 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 You know, and even within the context of some men pick up on this need for more need for soul and soulfulness, a lot of them still hedge, and you might have seen this debate, this new this like schism, I guess. You might see that a lot of these guys they viscerally understand there's a soul element and they need to have that transcendence, that sovereignty. And so, one of the ways they try to do that, but of course, as a sexual advertisement, is that they're family oriented, they're committed to their wives, they're committed to their children. And while that's necessarily like an element to our lives when we undertake that, like that, it becomes their primary and only thing. Places them at the behest of their wife and children, such that they don't have what they really are pretending to have, which is sovereignty,
Mhm.
pursuit of something beyond all of this, beyond us all. And it's so funny you brought up the travel whoring. I hate that so much because it is actually such an instructive example of that soullessness. Because what is it trying to do? It is too trying to wax transcendence, trying to emanate this sophistication. Oh, I travel. And what's the inference there? What's the cope masquerade? It's, oh, I learn about things. And isn't it remarkable how, oh, learning to them is not actually learning, meaning that if they wanted to learn about the Congo or something, they could read a history book, they could read a Wikipedia, even watch a documentary on YouTube. But then they go, oh, well, it's the experience. And what is experience code for? I want to feel good in that place. I want to go somewhere else and have a feel good feeling. And they think they're going to get that because they watch the TikTok edits with the music. And then they think that when they go there, the TikTok music is going to play. And then, of course, what do you know? There's that fickleness to that this whimsical fickleness, this impulsiveness to that, because it's symptomatic of needing novelty stimulus, of needing
Boom.
increasingly higher stimulus, and they go. And then, of course, you and I both know this meme that men want sex and women don't is total horseshit. And what that means is that if she's traveling for a year, like how many times do you think she went a fucking week without getting fucked? Probably not. And then, of course, the traveling sets up the conditions for, oh, it doesn't count. Oh, I was on vacation. Oh, well, this. Oh, well,
No
I
slut
was in my
shaming.
travel girl era or something like that. So that is such an instructive example of that soullessness, that fickleness, that pursuing pleasantries that creates the conditions for somebody to be 30 years old, like you said, a woman who's 30 years old. And it's very clear in the body language and the personality and the disposition and everything why they're 30 years old and unmarried. It's very rare that a woman is 30 plus years old and unmarried because she just, freaking heckin' got freaking played by um, men. And I'll say one more, and that is that the wall at 30 thing for women, that is there, that is a real thing, just biologically because of giving children or something like that. But I think you're right to point out, well, hang on, it's not exactly like smooth sailing for men too. Men past 30, because what is attraction? If we're such tough guys and we entertain the brutal truth of attraction, that is, it has a lot to do with looks for men too, and it has a lot to do with your residual smell. They can smell your testosterone and everything. It does go down in your 30s. You do get older and less capable physically, and you do have rougher skin, these sorts of things that do signal to women a lower degree of attraction. And this stuff about status and money and all of that, that stuff doesn't directly activate attraction. It's more so the intrinsic characteristics that made you have status. And I would even argue that status expresses oftentimes not even through tangible, quantifiable definables like money, career, who you hang out with, what city you're from, or something, but rather status communicates where it actually activates attraction when it's felt interpersonally, when everyone in the room looks up to you. Now, sometimes because of your career, everyone looks up to you, but other times it's felt, it's like it's in the emotional space rather than
Mhm.
the quantifiable space.
Yeah, it's like so many things you touched upon. So I'm just gonna bounce off the last thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
sure.
like, people think that status is just a number, a followers count, a title on a fucking business card and everything. You can
Yes.
communicate status just from your communication.
Yes.
Like, and
Exactly.
that is one of the most subtle yet potent evidence of status.
Yes.
And like, here I'm gonna do some plugging, but like, I'm gonna, you'll have all of those status indicators, how you communicate, how you can convey it, all that in the masculinity course and in the game course that I'll be releasing very soon. The masculinity course is gonna come first. It's still about leadership, respect, proto frame game, masculine frame, but also leadership. No, sorry, influence, sovereignty. Like, there are so many things that, like, I put on everything that is clean, like no toxic shit
Mhm.
on there, right? Toxic is gonna be a bit later. I'm not even sure I want to basically put it out there. Maybe I just want to make sure I still have like a place in heaven. Who knows, right? But no, and no, more seriously, it's like it's very important to acknowledge that, because you can have status on paper
Yeah.
but be made of sand when it comes to real life, right? Like, high status is not just what you've got. Obviously, sometimes just because of the positive feedback loop, people wanting your attention and everything, you'll develop those traits. But it's not, you cannot have status and still have a high status behavior. And
Right.
this is a level of subtlety that, and it's kind of like, yeah, the money, the car, the provider type of moniker will make you woman attracted to you in the short run because you single yourself out. But if you make it your personality, then it's not gonna cut it. But what was the first thing you mentioned? So yeah, no, and also, yeah, that thing which was a novelty. This novelty, stimulus driven, emptying that vacuum. I mean, just filling up that vacuity inside their mind from the travel whoring. It's like,
Yeah.
think about it this way, right? It's like, if someone can switch and change people over time, whether it's basically sponsored by TikTok, it's like, oh, he doesn't do what you want, just can switch to another guy. Oh, no. How do you think you can develop deep bond, deep trust? And I'm not even talking about body count. I'm just talking deep bond, deep trust,
Yeah.
um, anything meaningful with someone that basically switch and turn, a portfolio of stock of a portfolio of stocks like they do their socks. You can't. And it's like, and for you as a guy, if you want to, vet a girl and everything, just look at how chaotic her life was.
Yeah.
Whether it's in her family, whether it is in the way what she has prioritized, because understand one thing: people's life are product of their subconscious or conscious priorities.
Yeah.
And if by a certain age they've not, d- you know, they- they've not set themselves up to be in a long-term relationship, there's a reason for that. It's because they don't like guys. So the universe reward them by not giving them guys. The
Right.
only exception, and that's something that sometimes you'll, how do I say, sometimes you'll have guys that may underestimate that factor, but many times I've seen women been in a relationship for 7 to 10 years, even sometimes 12, and they start early 10s, right?
Yeah.
and or even sometimes like 15, 17, 20 years, and they're like late 30s or late 30s or early 40s, and they've not been with many guys. They've not been
Right.
with many guys. They've just been with that long-term relationship. Either they have kids or whatnot, or either they had no kids, they had no marriage, or they married and they basically divorced very soon without any kids. So you
Yeah.
can find yourself with a woman in the mid 30s who actually is not that bad. It's just that she, life happens,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a number of women for which life happens, and you're absolutely right that forgetting even the body count and all of that stuff, that it is this need for this pleasant indulgence of novelty and everything. That also just tells you as to what she thinks a relationship entails. She thinks that it's supposed to be a 24/7 drug like euphoric drug high, and once she comes off that high because she has a tolerance for you, she monkey branches somewhere else. And anyone who expresses any sentiment of fear about that behavior pattern, that most certainly makes for a resistance to women who quote unquote travel or have tattoos. Even tattoos are the same sort of a similar thing. And even single motherdom, sometimes we just use an example of when it's, not really indicative of this, but simultaneously there's a number of single moms who are single moms because they're fickle and uh,
yeah.
impulsive. And then simultaneously, too, over time, a single mom will actually learn to stop being that way and be fairly pleasant and consideration. Uh, one of the first things I said, because you said I touched on a lot of points and you
Mhm,
went back to some of them, uh, and we could skip over this. I just wanted to,
mhm,
in case you had a good thought about it. When
mm,
I started with how family, or some guys try to use family as a means to transcend, as a means to purpose, but
yeah.
also they're using that as an advertisement of masculinity to women or something like that.
No, yeah, and it's like, look, again, masculinity is not some type of fucking billboard, right? It's just a
Yeah.
behavior you embody. And,
Yes.
and it's very important, and that's something that in my course, Masculine Meta, right, I've delved into. People, will go to heuristics, which
Yes.
heuristics are just mental shortcuts to drive. Okay, well, that's masculine. That's not masculine, right? It's like, oh, he's got muscle. He's built like the Rock. That's masculine. Yeah, but you have guys I've got muscle and built like the Rock. That I've got the backbone of a bitch, i.e., none, or a jellyfish. That's not masculine, right? It's kind of like it's energy, right? And oh yeah, that's
Yes.
another thing I want to say. Y- you think people think of time, money, attention, but I'll tell you something. After 35, energy to me is the most scarce resource
Yes.
there is out of all those, even attention. And what do I want? An energy not only in terms of vitality,
Yeah.
but also in terms of the polarity of energy that you give. So you'll find guys are actually not that muscly or not that particularly physiognomically looking masculine, right?
Hmm.
But yet will display masculine traits.
Yes.
And masculinity is not into gimmicks. Masculinity is not something that you draw from women. It's something that you draw from within. And
Yes.
using institutions such as marriage or any other type of, you know, let's say monikers as crutches are only there to hide that you ain't got none because you got to rely upon something. It's not because
Yes.
you're a provider that you're a fucking masculine. It's not because you fuck a lot of bitches that you're fucking masculine. And that's
Yes.
something you can only understand if you've been there and still felt like a bitch.
Yeah.
You really can. No, no, but like, but and I want to segue as well to the other thing, which was no one was talking about the wall. I remember I made a post, and that was about a year or year and a half, and I said men also have a wall. Men have a wall, and that's about 35 years old. Yeah, I passed the wall. Yeah, give me a fucking. I'm cutting the ribbon. and it's that area because it's like you have less vitality. I mean, yeah, of course you can have TRT, you can use all those extra little things, but from a natural perspective, without any type of enhancer, you lose that vitality, you lose that energy, right?
Yeah.
Like you carry more, carry more easily visceral fat. Your
Yep.
skin's different, you know. It's like your sleep's different. You don't when you go drinking, it's not the same, and it's like all of those factors doesn't like no because I know there are part of like the red pill say that the peak of man is around like 37. Nigga, please.
Mhm.
I mean, if you want to be a fucking over or glorified pay pig, yeah, right. Because most of the girls
Yes.
at 22 are not interested in you. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you have money or unless they have some daddy issues. Because yeah, some girls have daddy issues and are actually really interested in you outside of the money just for fucking, you know. But like most of the time, what are going to be your common points with a 22-year-old? None, right? So
Right.
you go in there, and on top of that, you have all of those not necessarily baggage, but experience that you carry that
Yes.
makes it way less likely for you to bond deeply with someone. Because if you want to be
Yes.
able to bond deeply with someone, there needs to be a level of naivety because that level of naivety is going to enable you to jump in the frame more easily.
Yeah.
And it's very important in that time to be with someone that is equally as naive. Because if you end up
Yes.
with someone that is not naive, you're in for a rough ride. Yeah, those were the points I wanted to make on those. But yeah, you touched on so many points. I was like, shit, I need to make sure that you know. So thank you for.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I write down some quick lines here every time because the nature of all of this is we all go really strongly, so we all have a set of points.
Mm, yeah.
And pursuant to that, I think what you said about masculinity is so correct and so well said, and it reminds me of how my origin story with the gym bro success thing, it didn't have anything to do with getting the specific results in the gym. It was more so that I felt the mandate to have congruence, meaning that I felt that the mandate or the objective was nothing to do with the specific numbers of the gym, but rather that I showed up to the gym and challenged myself in the first place every day under all the circumstances. And so that's what I try to tell a lot of people that, because sometimes people like when they don't understand what they want and everything, I always tell them, you can Google how to go to the gym. You could Google every exercise. That's what I did. I Googled exercises. I learned rep ranges and specific exercises at specific angles for muscles and everything. Nobody needs directions, but the behavior change is the
Mm,
separating factor. And men who don't understand a value proposition of the gym that's intrinsic masculinity from challenging yourself to go every day, from subordinating your impulses and feelings, is the goal, is the masculinity. Because there is like a constellation of things to do, to pursue, but the defining character of masculinity is that you put forth the challenge and effort and you have that energy to do it, to pursue all of these things regardless of how you feel. And I'll say you're right to point out like, because there's talk online of, oh, that it's not intrinsically wrong to have a 22-year-old woman date a 30-something-year-old man, but women are right to sort of see that as, okay, I think you just kind of want an idiot to manipulate. And I think
mm.
that the idea of that is of men who are anxious about relating to women construct these frames like an age gap like that such that they feel more empowered. But it's remarkable how the cognitive dissonance emerges because they'll simultaneously decry the epically epic red pill that is women like looks too. And it's like, okay, so then a 22-year-old's going to be horny for other 22-year-olds, dude. So how are you reconciling that? Then it's, oh, well, I want a freaking bitch who's like pleasant and doesn't freaking bother me and all that. It's like, dude, when you're 37, a 22-year-old in living with you is going to be the most fucking annoying thing you will ever think you've experienced. That would actually be hell, regardless of how much she bangs you and how stupid and
Mhm.
naive she is.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's People, it's so funny because people don't realize the ramification of some of the conclusion they make. Because, like, some of the some of the articles, generally come after a second or third or fourth order effect of, like, some original thought process that I had, and I was like, "Oh." And, it's the yeah, it's just, like, if you want, whether it's women or whether it's guys, if you want a relationship, don't fuck around.
Yeah.
Literally and metaphorically, like, don't fuck around.
Yeah.
Like, personally, for me, it's kinda, I never really wanted kids. I never wanted kids. Well, it's like, as my dad said to me, I almost ended up in the army, by the way. As my
There you
dad
go.
said to me, it's like, I gave up on the idea of you joining the army, and I asked him, "But why?" I was like, "'Cause the only thing you care is about money and bitches." And I was like, I mean, I guess you couldn't be more
Yeah.
more right. I mean, he finally understood that when I was 27, a bit late, but hey, you wouldn't be
Yeah.
no, that would be a real dad if they didn't have hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but anyway, I still got some part of his intellectualism. Uh, yeah. Anyway, the other thing which was interesting was that you were mentioning was the dorks who try to carve out their own masculinity and tough guy edgelord, posturing the red pill foster bitterness and is mean to women, but that we discussed, right?
Yeah.
But they fail to construct an argument for what precisely is incorrect about game and red pill, right? It's like, well, red pill is correct, but then it's saying it's damaging to get good boy points with women. So technically, what you're saying is this subset segment of people, right? They
Yeah.
are trying to re-narrate the red pill. They're just basically approval-seeking bitches that
Yeah.
are just another version of white knighting.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in a space with them and I was trying to be nice because I wanted to understand. So I was listening and everything, and they were saying things like they literally said the red pill's correct, but it's the way they portray it is bad for men. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Who even says that and all that? And they were like, well, for example, uh something about like 80% of women do this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, like, what is the argument for what is wrong about that? And they were like, well, it's not wrong. It just makes things, seem shitty. And it's like, so suddenly we're sacrificing truth for how it makes us feel. Moreover, people just completely misunderstand like numbers. Like, if there's 80% of women, I don't know, 80% of women are whores or something like that. It's like 20% of women is still a significant number of women that you're going to come across in your life. That's 2 in every 10 women you come across. And even within that, let's not forget that while there's getting laid, some men just want to do that and to pump their numbers up and all of that. Really, like, what you ask for with women is you just need it to work once in a way, meaning that you just need one. Like, if you're actually focusing on, especially these dorks who are, saying, oh, relationship and commitment and all of that, you actually have pretty good odds because there's billions of women in the world. You just need it to work with one of them, one of them, one time, and the deal is sealed. So they keep doing this thing with how this was a while ago. It just sort of made me think of it as notes for us. I should pull it up. Actually, I know I remember where I had some thoughts written down, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's like you said, it's this approval seeking, and it's this operation that it's about feelings. Like, it's this operation about the goal isn't even to arrive at truth or to substantiate truth. It's just about to construct frames in which we could feel good or something like that.
You see, and it's interesting that you mention about frames and frame, because and that shows, like, I'd say, one of the biggest differentiator, yeah, between the red pill and the game for, like, RSD mystery and everything, is game people feel that there are frames,
Mm.
right? It's like, it's like got a frame, but frame is technically just the interactional frame, and from the interactional frame, you have frame because she stayed within the interactional frame. but you can see how fluid that is, right? So technically, it's like as long as she follows your leadership into the frame you set within that interaction, you have frame.
Yeah.
It's quite fragile, right?
Yeah.
Whereas on the other hand, if you look at the red pill, it's like frame is something more of an invariant, something that basically is only relying upon you. What do you want?
Yes.
What's your vision? What's your physical frame? What's your emotional frame? What's your intellectual frame? All of this, right? So it's very much based upon you and you alone, right? It doesn't, uh, you know, and whenever you break outside of that quote unquote stoicism, but I don't really like calling that. I mean, it used to be a philosophical current, but it became just a cope for a lot of people.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, but the point being is, it's like if you become reactive, then you lost the frame, right? But that's kind of like more of the red pill frame, because it's like if she moves you emotionally, therefore you lost the frame. But the frame is based upon you, not upon the frame of the interaction.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So sorry, you want to bounce off that? I want to say something else, but I forgot. The wall.
In the meantime, you brought up the stoicism point. That's actually something that I absolutely love that you brought that up, because there is this prolific problem. You're absolutely right, where men read in like How to Be a Man magazine when they were 15 years old that women are emotional and men are rational, or men are logical. And so, in the classic neurotic, low self esteem, retard way, they consider that as okay, so I can never have a feeling under any circumstance, or exude a feeling under any circumstance for any reason. And I'm going to make every last second of every last day about rationalism. And to your point, this emerges as this problem of this thinking that frame is just being stoic because, oh, well, if she infringes upon your feelings, well, then you're being a beta cuck pussy. And it's like, no, that's actually starting to amount to cowardice. Now you're just a coward, actually, and you're trying to operate a safe, easy heuristic. Because if a woman, like, if you're interacting with a woman and she, there's shit tests and everything but if she makes a habit of it or she makes a problem of it, you standing your ground and standing up for yourself and your boundaries isn't you being emotionally wounded and um, reactive to her. It's like sometimes someone is rude and disrespectful, and sometimes you have to say something to it or about it. And a lot of these idiots will just lap up the chance to say, "Oh, well, that's pussified. Oh, real men don't do that." And it's like you're just a coward. And to your point, that they don't understand that frame is also you defining when it is tough and appropriate and resilient and uh, masculine to react. Now, of course, it gets tricky because you can't really rely on people to define that and everything, but it just means that if you're going to have frame, that means you have boundaries. And if you have boundaries, you will set them when they emerge. And that might include having to tell a woman or somebody to just shut their fucking mouth or something along those lines. It doesn't mean you're offended. It doesn't mean you're wounded. Or even if it does mean you're wounded, it's like if somebody punches you in the face and you punch them back, does somebody go, huh, pussy, what, did that hurt your face? And that's why you got to punch them back? Like, obviously not. And the same goes for this sort of psychological combat, this emotional combat. Of course, there's
Uh,
times where it's teasing and you can't really react. But
mhm.
most certainly it becomes a cope of cowardice, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, again, right? Like, it's the thing, and just to make also the difference, it's like the concept of frame is not for you to be contingent upon a positive outcome. Because the moment
Yes.
frame is contingent on a positive outcome, then it's no frame, you're frameless.
Yes.
So the fact that the masculine frame needs to yield a positive outcome to a woman is a perfect example of ma- masculinity operating within the female frame, right?
Yes.
Meaning by that non-masculinity. So that's the first bit. The second bit is, yeah. So the act of setting a boundary is reactive by nature. But if you
Yeah.
don't have boundaries, it goes back to what I was saying. It's like it's one thing to have boundaries, don't lead with them, just set them up whenever it's convenient, right? Then it's a
Exactly.
matter of being, uh, you know, calibrated enough to understand. Okay, well, is this overbearing? or is this
Yeah.
ridiculous? I'll give you an example, right? Not later as than yesterday. I had a girl just traveling from well, but yeah, I mean, like it's not like traveling from Dubai, right? And she said she wanted to meet me basically just soon after she landed, right?
Right.
So I'm like, all right, cool, fine. We had like a little chit chat, whatever, and like 2 3 hours before meeting up, so well, can you tell me more about yourself? Like, well, first of all, I've got shit to do. I don't have time to that in my head, right?
Right.
I'm just like, and I said, well, isn't that what the meeting's supposed to be? Is that what the meetup's supposed to be so that we can talk about ourselves? But now I've got to talk about myself about, like three hours. So I just responded, is like, you know, isn't that what the meeting's supposed to be? And she never
Right.
replied, right? I
Right.
mean, it's like in my head, I'm like, that's like, to me, it just sounded completely uncalibrated. It's
Yeah.
like I get it if let's say you're not yet agreed upon meeting me and that you want my, even though I find the ask a bit clumsy, but whatever, it's like women don't have game most of the time, so
Yeah.
uh, so I was like, and then I send it, I send this screenshot to my friend, right, who's a bit more of a feeler, right, and it's like says to me, I'm fragile. I'm just like, nigga, I don't have a fucking time. But this
Yeah.
goes to show that, and I told him the context, right? And
Yeah.
he's just like, why have you got to hide? I'm like, nigga, I don't have time. Like, if you give me something to like, but the point I'm saying is like people have different interpretations. So for me, it was not really a boundary. It was kind of just like me. It was just like actually it was like a challenge, but like
Yeah.
not like a antipathetic challenge. It was like, isn't that what what we're meeting up for, right? But the fact that even something as challenging as that, that woman would basically be like, I'm out. But for me, I would not go on a date with that girl because I'm just like, if you're not willing to withstand that challenge, I'm not interested. And the same reason why she was not interested, if he's willing to put that challenge to me, he's not interested. And
Yeah.
you know, and to someone it'll be overreaction. To me, it's like uncalibration on their end. So
Right.
it just goes to show. Like you cannot have a boundary that will be always good in every fucking field, in every fucking respect. So for you, boundaries are more for you to actually be. Is this okay with you to have? Is it's not? Is this approved by the group?
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of there's a confident element to that, and I think there's also just this prolific mythology and frame of mind that we almost feel like we cannot state these things fervently because none of it will ever have an objective, defined criterion and everything. It's our best efforts for a well-defined criterion is the group consensus for these interpersonal social behaviors and boundaries and just frame even. But simultaneously, it's like the collective unconscious or the group only gets its frame from the individuals in the first place, and most individuals are just dummies. So you really can just sort of dictate how an interaction or whatever goes however you want, and it's almost kind of like freeing. And that what that entails sometimes is all the old school guys, the RSSD guys, used to show examples of them in clubs or something like that, talking to women about like StarCraft or something. And because they had frame, because to them that's the appropriate thing to talk about, that's what they want to talk about, so that's what they're going to talk about. It became exciting for the women too. And women obviously don't like StarCraft. And you and I know this basic tenet 101. It has nothing to do with the substance. For me, I like philosophizing. I like doing this stuff. I like engaging and all of that stuff. So forgetting even just, I'm married, so I don't care to interact with other women, but even just interacting in life, like this is how I am and what I want to talk about. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And a lot of guys can realize that this is actually very freeing. This is very freeing. You get to decide what to do under what circumstance. And even when you're challenged, 90% of the time, people completely crumble if like they say a little quip or something like that that challenges you, and you could just say like why or according to what. I'm trying to think of an example, but people will just say something like the bald thing we said, they'd be like, "Oh, well, you're bald." And it's like, and, and just uttering and instantaneously is your frame. And even if they try to construct something like, "Oh, well, that means blah, 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 blah," and you're just like, according to what? And they can't give an answer. So you just become in control of the interaction. And it's a very freeing thing. And it's very easy once you know who you are.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is, the reality, so many guys don't know who the fuck they are. But you know
Yeah.
something? Generally, it's because of a lack of challenge in their lives. Because guys will have to look inside the mirror of themselves when when they go down, when they go deep down, because in order to get up, you have to look at yourself and be like, is this who I want to be? But most of the time, before people fall, they don't have a fucking clue of what they look like. It's only
Yeah.
after they fall they get an idea,
Yeah.
and then they can make whatever amendments they feel they need to. Um, but yeah, and most of the time, like, that's why you see a lot of guys. They have like that midlife crisis. The midlife
Yeah.
crisis is just guys that have put themselves in the back on the back burner for so long, and
Yeah.
finally they have enough means to to take care of themselves. To be like, you know what, fuck this. I want to enjoy my
Yeah.
life a bit. That's it.
Yeah. And
um,
it's complex. It's understandably complex because who you are is this amalgamation of, well, what your values are, what you think is right, what you like to do, what you want to do, what you consider this, what you consider that, what your skills and aptitudes and your sociabilities, and all of these things combine to form this identity. And even then, to fully articulate your emotional identity is still fairly complex. And so you're absolutely right that a lot of people just get caught up until they're 50, just meeting their needs, checking the money, food, sex, family boxes, and then they're 50 years old. And once they've done that, sort of like we said earlier, what do you do once you solve women? What do you do once you solve your needs? And suddenly these guys realize they have no clue who they are.
mm, and it's sad. It's sad, but because guys just cruise along, coast along. And to be honest, there's beauty in beautiful in blissful ignorance.
Yeah.
I was fucking happy as fuck when I was 14 years old,
Yeah, me too.
paying the bills, just playing video games, like, hey man, sign
Dude,
me up
yes.
again. Just like, so if I'm in the 36 ain't a great deal. I mean, yeah, fuck more, but it's like, I'll take peace of mind.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, last point was about the gold pill. So the gold pill. So I take on what you wrote. The gold pill dorks and others would try to regain power and masculinity by operating within the broader female frame. Example: spamming divorce stats or something to victimize men, so they are now at the top of the victim hierarchy to then gain sense of power that ultimately fails because it's still subordinate to female definition of morality and power structures. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of have been it's sort of bouncing back and forth between all of the off the top of the head points we figured. But yeah, I mean, Gold Pill has, in a way, rightfully identified the problem of assigning value to number of sexual partners. And their big gripe with it isn't even that it's just destructive to the psyche, but their big gripe with it is, oh, well, that's subordinate to women. And it's okay, fair enough. You got yourself a point there. And but remarkably, they're not paying attention to what anyone says because, like, anybody in the red pill or anything like that, the PUA, red pill, right wing misogynist space is well past that stuff actually in 2026. And um, even when explicating the nature and concept of, well, women see it as valuable to have a harem or to, at the very least, have it be clear that other women express desire for you. when people use the term value in that context, they mean value in the sexual market, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
And that's just what it is. Like it's not even that women that activates something so much for women. Sometimes it's just a heuristic for them. Sometimes it just makes it faster and easier for them to evaluate your safety. Like a lot of these dorks forget that women have to evaluate before they fuck you if, you're gonna like murder them or choke them out or something when you're doing so.
Well,
So other women
some
liking you and recommending you gives them that.
some women like to be, choked out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Just say, just
yeah.
for the audience, just to know,
Choked out of, I guess perhaps I'll say strangulation, murder by strangulation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, hey,
Wha-
look, man, look, I'm 30. We're about the same age. I mean, you're Gen Z or millennial? You
I'm
consider
on like
yourself
the
the
cusp. Some definitions
uh,
of millennial go up to 95. Some definitions don't. I'll say that I feel and have always identified with the Zoomer caricature before Zoomers even were a thing. Because
mhm,
my classmates in high school did every possible millennial quirk chungus that you could think of. That's the most contemptible thing. They all
mhm.
did, and it made me lose my mind.
Yeah, yeah. No, dealing with Gen Z sometimes I really feel like an old dunk. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, no. What were you saying just before? I forgot. So what was the? Yeah, about uh, what was the stuff you said just before the?
Yeah, the gold pill guys who rightfully identify the problem of assigning value to female body count, but simultaneously not understanding that that doesn't imply intrinsic value, and also that that is a legitimate heuristic women use to assess value sexually, though, not
Mhm.
intrinsic value. And you don't have to consider that a part of your intrinsic value.
It's interesting because I look at gold pill. I never heard about gold pill. I mean, I heard about orange pill, for example, for like the Bitcoin guy or whatever. But like, I never heard about our gold pill. I mean, bloody hell, talking about the pill OG. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's interesting when you look at it, right? Like, even if you just look at the question of body count, right? There are some pros and there are some cons to body count.
Hmm.
A high body count, low body count. It really depends upon what you want. A high body count for women or woman doesn't necessarily guarantee great sex, right? Sometimes you have girls with low body counts that have been properly trained by their previous boyfriend that can basically fuck like a fucking rabbit.
Yeah.
And you have fucking ran through that just they are not much better than a Carl Jr. star sex, So it's it's not like and in terms of attachment, you know, logic would make sense that the more they've been with guys, the less like they are attached. No same thing as a travel whore logic.
Hmm.
So really, it's about what and when you make the difference between value, intrinsic value, and value to the marketplace, I'll make the argument that it's different. I'll make the argument that it's different. Basically, it's like to me, uh, I don't really care about body count, mostly because I don't really care about relationship, but eh,
Hmm.
like, because I just want to actually see the people for who they are.
Yeah.
I've met some very nice woman with a ridiculous body count,
Right.
and some I would say a bit boring woman, not boring in the sexual sense, but just boring in the personality sense.
Yeah.
With low body count, so it's not, it's like value is subjective. It
Yeah.
depends upon where your metric lies. But equally, I've met some very interesting low body count women that would tend to necessarily be a bit more intellectual, not sexually attractive in that sense, but intellectually stimulating, and found some fucking dumbass bitches who were, as ran through as the Holland Tunnel. So you know, it what's important is like stop the victimization narrative, right? It's like things are the way they are,
Yeah.
deal with it. It's
Yeah.
like, you know sometimes it may, like, if you read my Twitter, it may sound like I'm kind of, you know, like the old guy screaming at the fucking gray sky for raining, like the Simpson guys.
Right.
"Ah." But I'm not. I'm just describing shit from a purely descriptive. I mean, yeah, neutral analytical perspective. Yeah, sometimes I play to the rage bait, but
Yeah.
you know, nigga gotta eat. No, more seriously, it's like I look at things the way they are, and I just move away from it. I move away because I'm just like, it doesn't. What does it get me? It gets me nothing. So if it gets me nothing, why should I basically you know, be moved by it?
Right.
It's important for you as guys to like detach from it and
Right.
just use it to the best of your ability of, okay, well, this is a situation at hand. There's no point for me lying about it. What do I want from that situation? How am I going to navigate that situation? And what not to do in order to fuck up a situation that could lead me to something I want with the current situation at hand. You know,
Right.
that's it. It's by you want to be stoic and pragmatic. This is a way. This is a way. And it's like, in the moment that you use morals, you're becoming more of a bitch
Yeah.
than bitches, because your average bitch is amoral. So if you become moral about it, what does that make you? The bitch.
Yeah. And they try to use because moralizing becomes shaming. And what is shaming? Shaming is the tactic of the powerless, the tactic of people who have no influence, no
Mhm.
understanding, no argument, no anything. And it's an effort to get subordination just by way of like this mammal brain coercion of, oh, well, the group doesn't think and feel that. And as far as the gold pill guys, they actually do this a lot. They moralize by, decrying the sob stories of divorce and the divorce statistics and child support and everything. And like, you know, that's all like, not good things to have in society. But their point isn't that those are bad things to have in society. Their point is, well, we should feel bad for men now. And there's a difference
Mhm.
between empathy or something like that, but empathy has to then be pursuant to change or something like that. And part of change there, well, firstly, there's political change and everything like that, but also like yeah, the divorce stuff, that is they're trying to say, "Well, women are big fat meanies again," and it's like, "Well, you're actually kind of a fucking retard for marrying the women that you dorks marry, because you're all fucking that slavish," and I don't really feel bad for, some of these men for that sort of thing, but nevertheless, these dorks amidst powerlessness, I probably said this a little bit earlier, in a similar
Mhm.
fashion, they're moralizing in the context of the female frame of morals, which is the victim. The victim is the highest on the hierarchy. And so they try to regain power by saying, no, we're actually the victims instead of rejecting victimhood ethics altogether. And so that's essentially the
Yeah, it's in the yeah, it's technically it's a polarity inversion through
yes,
victimization. It's like, yeah, it's like, who in the victim narrative? It's what thing is, it's like, what is that going to do for you? Nothing,
yes,
nothing. And it's like, okay, even if you were to win, the thing is, it's like, like people will say masculinity is a burden of performance.
hmm
Oh, masculinity is burden without recognition.
hmm yeah,
That's it. Burden without recognition. I mean, yeah, if you get recognition, but if you seek it, you ain't masculine because you're just basically you need that validation.
yeah,
It's the reason why women are drawn to guys that do not feel validated by them is because they don't have any fucking leverage over them. So if they don't have
yeah,
any fucking leverage over them, they are rid of their power, and
yes,
that's why they're drawn into masculinity.
yes. Yeah, once they feel like they're not the one in power, well, what is that? That is the necessary precondition, emotional state for attraction to surface in many ways. And simultaneously, I'll say you mentioned masculinity is burden. You know, this relates to our points of like purpose and meaning making and everything. Like realistically, all of life is burden and suffering and displeasant and uncomfortable pretty much 24/7. And so it's up to us to really stop. You're never going to change that reality. A lot of people try to change that reality by trying to come up with ideas or whatever, or frames or political systems that'll maximize pleasure and pleasantries and minimize suffering. But I mean, that a lot of people even consider it suffering is actually sort of a choice and a problem because I don't consider it suffering that I have a mandate to write, to read, to do coaching, to work, and all of that stuff. I like that. What else am I going to do? Watch a Disney movie for the 10,000th time? So, uh,
Uh,
go ahead.
you know what you should do, Marquis? You should go to the south of France, and trust me, you will not want to work ever again. French lifestyle. Tell me, I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, no. If you ask me, I'll be like, just give me fucking annuity all the forever. I ain't gonna work ever again. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
there's an element to that, but even then, when you're not working, you find something to do. Oddly enough, that
yeah.
isn't always just like drugs.
Oh no, most likely I'll read some more philosophy and psychology book, and we can talk
Exactly.
again.
Exactly.
So, so tell me, Mark, is any last word for the pod?
Well, I'll say we were mentioning the point about I forget why I wrote this part, but I'll just say that because on our side of the internet, there's also that meme that floats around. How does it affect you personally? On some level, people are starting to forget the rugged individualism that makes the West, that makes Western society.
Hmm.
That is a core tenet that you do have to have, such that you can't let yourself get caught up in this mammal brain slavishness. Even the identity politics and everything. There's the white population stuff and everything. It's like, okay, yeah, rah rah, these are our people, and it's like, okay, simultaneously, like a number of them are kind of like the trailer park dorks that are trying to take LARP and take credit as
Hmm.
like a descendant of Napoleon or something. It's like, okay, can you like do something he did then actually? So that was one of my last points there. And then another point I'll just say is that on the body count, you were right to say that it doesn't actually always service you to have a higher body count. And the example is that, and I didn't even have I don't even have a particularly high body count, but
Hmm.
when I was on the dating apps, uh, and before I met my wife, there every time, something didn't go wrong, right, or something like that, what is the solution when you look it up online? It tended to be more masculine, more gamey, more this, more that. And so when you dive too deep into that, and you do actually have the Chad look and the Chad musculature and everything, when you lean too heavily into that, that's actually counterproductive and it makes them sort of scared that you're gonna hurt their feelings, and they know like a Chad will in some way and everything, but if you lay it on too thick, it's too obvious and it's too upfront and it goes away. And so I'll always say one of the things I remember doing was when I finally let go of the idea of, oh well, I can't appear slightly anything other than alpha. When I let go of that and I reframed myself and I said, you know what? It's not up to them, it's up to me. I know who I am, I know what I want, I know who I'm being. I changed my bio on my Tinder to the most like Foyd bait ever. And one of the things I said was, painfully misjudged or something like that. And that's not, and as soon as I did that, it was like the floodgates broke loose in terms of like messaging and matches and everything. And that certainly taught me a lot and transitioned me over. And then, of course, thereafter I met my wife and that caught my wife's attention actually too. And then, it's history from there. But, a side note, I don't want to say she's like an idiot and a Foyd bait retard that looks at a line like that and like is like, oh, what's that? But another element that I think is a good thing to wrap up on is my wife also said, upon seeing my profile, she almost swiped left. And her friend was like, well, why would you do that? And she's like, well, he's out of my league. And her friend said, like, literally, so it's just Tinder. Like, you could just swipe right on anybody. Who cares? Like, what is the consequence of doing that? And she was like, oh, yeah, you're right. And then we matched. And
And then you got married.
got
That's
married.
a
So
consequence.
exactly. So I think that alludes to that major point we were making, which is that you can't let, had she swiped left or something like that, and I took that as, oh, I must be a beta cuck pussy, when it turns out like she just had this false idea in her head that didn't really make sense. Uh, you know, so that story right there is meant to say that you cannot let yourself get caught up in that idea that it necessarily implies you're like a beta cuck pussy or something.
Thing is, and that's something I think would be a great thing to wrap up on for guys that are actually gonna let them go of their fucking neuroticism.
Yes.
When a girl see your profile, but more and more importantly, when she sees you in real life,
Yes.
she's already boxed you in.
Yeah.
So like, she'll see, you know what, you're gonna be Mr. Handsome. You're not that hot. That you're not that hot. Uh, that I feel non-threatened, that I can see you as as my boyfriend, type of shit, right? Or you're Mr. Hot, that I feel that I can't trust you because you've got too many options, so I'll just fuck you, right?
Yeah.
Or you're like, oh shit, I got catfish, right?
Yeah.
Then from that boxing exercise, your job is not to talk yourself out of poon, and
Yeah.
then afterwards get the relationship. I mean, I'm very much like, and you call it like cutting it short, but in the grand scheme of things, that's that. So if she doesn't see you as whatever alpha, whatever you want to call it, it's not by you trying to, gesture and posture, whatever that you are, that you're gonna make her feel like you're alpha. I would say game is 80% about not fucking up.
Yeah.
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 So by you not fucking up 80% of the time rather than by you doing the right thing 20% of the time, you are gonna more likely be considered quote unquote alpha, even though it's more like you're not a creep, really. That's pretty much it. Like, don't think about, oh, am I alpha, alpha, am I alpha, am I not alpha? Just think, am I behaving like a creep? That's it. And always remember that you will always be a creep if she's put you in the creep box from the first second. So no point worrying about it. This is just to kind of like give you a perspective. So stop, because a lot of time what I see with guys is it's like, oh, can I do this or I'm gonna be a creep? Like, it's like they're so worried about by looking like a creep that they are forgetting that they have a dick.
Yeah.
And but it's real. It's real. It's like, look, even myself, I'll be considered a creep by some bitches, and
Yeah.
it's fine, and that's fine. But I'd rather be considered a creep by some bitches than having no dick by every bitch.
Yeah. Well
Pick
said.
your battle. That's it.
Yeah.
Pick your battle. So yeah, man. Unless you have anything to bounce off that, we can wrap it up. I'm giving you again the last word.
No, thank you. I'm good. I think that was a great last line there. So we'll leave it there. I appreciate it.
No worries. Well, look, Marquise. How do you say?
Marchese. Either
Marquise,
case, whatever. Really.
Marquise. Well, thank you for joining the pod. I think another quite long one. Um, and I'll make sure to post to put the details, your website, your stuff on the description. Um, for you guys that are interested in my courses that are going to be released under very short in a very very short time. Currently sorting out the landing page and the copy, but everything is pretty much ready. I will also drop that in the description below, so you can actually have a look at what it is. Um, do you want to basically put a line upon what you offer as part of your services, Markese?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Yeah. So I do one-on-one coaching. I deploy the methods of base therapy, as we mentioned during the podcast, and that entails helping you solve your problems and get your eyes on the prize and find your fulfillment. So that's one-on-one coaching at marchesemethods.com.
All right, perfect. If you need any for coaching, how to get girl, how to feel more confident, or how to do stuff that no other people will tell you how to do, you can also get in touch with me on my website as french-og.com. All right, perfect. Thank you very much, and we will close this pod. Always appreciative of your support and of your views, and I'll be back with another guest very soon enough. Thank you. Bye bye.